Students, is it audible to all of you? Students who are watching the online. So, students who are watching the YouTube live, can you please give me a confirmation? Is it audible to all of you? Alright, it is audible. I have already informed them to upload the handouts. I think by the time it should have been uploaded. Offline students, have you got the handouts? Okay. Okay, so I think the handouts should have been uploaded by this time, or it will be uploaded within few minutes. So, before we continue, just go through the questions that I have given very quickly for a couple of minutes, as you have done for the executive part. Just go through the questions in the handouts very quickly, and then we will proceed with what is called as the parliament part. Please do not try to solve it, just go through it very quickly. Okay. Alright, so please let me know if you are done. So, how many questions you can expect from the parliament chapter is, you can expect at least 3 to 5 questions, minimum 3 questions, sometimes 5-6 questions can also be asked from this parliament chapter, or I would say the legislature in general. This has become a very important area for your examination, and there are few areas where questions are repeatedly being asked. So, we will try to touch upon those areas as we will proceed. Alright. Okay, so please come to the topic, that is the legislature. In the legislature, we are going to discuss about the parliament. So, we will proceed as it is there in the constitution. We will try to cover all the aspects as we will proceed. So, first of all, if you see the constitution makes it very clear what constitutes a parliament, and according to the constitution, what constitutes a parliament? The parliament constitutes the president and the two houses. The president and the two houses, which means the council of states and the house of people, or you can say that the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, or you can say the upper house and the lower house, or you can say the second chamber and the first chamber. What is the second chamber in this? What is the second chamber? The second chamber is the Rajya Sabha, do not get confused. The first chamber is the Lok Sabha and the second chamber is Rajya Sabha. So, therefore, whatever way that they ask you, you should be very clear about it. So, what constitutes the parliament? The parliament constitutes the president and the two houses. Now, can anyone tell me why the president is also considered to be an integral part of the parliament? Though the president is the head of the union executive, why he is considered to be an integral part of the legislature? Yes? Okay, so that is also one of the important reason, because one of the important function of the legislature is to make the laws, and the legislature law making process will not be complete unless and until the president gives the assent. Therefore, the president helps the legislature in discharging their duties, and it is not only because of this particular reason. Anyways, try to understand, without the president the legislature cannot even come to session, because who is authority under the constitution to summon the session, to prorogue the session, and to again summon the session? So, all these things has to be done by the President of India. So, therefore, the President does play an important role in what is done by these legislative bodies. So, the President is also an integral part of the Parliament, and in addition to the President, we also have what is called as two houses. Now, what is the composition of these houses? Let us try to understand the composition of the upper house, that is what is called as the Council of States, or which is also called as the Rajya Sabha, or which is also called as what is called as the second chamber. Now, what the constitution says very clearly, the constitution says that the Council of States shall not have more than 12 members nominated, and it shall not have more than 238 members elected, including both the states as well as the union territories. That means the constitution makes it very clear that the total membership of Rajya Sabha shall not be more than 250, and out of this 250, how many members shall be elected? Elected members shall be 238, and not more than 12 members shall be nominated. So, therefore, the Rajya Sabha does consist of members both elected as well as nominated, but 238 is the maximum that can be elected, and this 238, the maximum that can be elected, includes from both the state as well as the union territories. Now, remember, the constitution does not differentiate, or the constitution does not give any specific number as to how many has to be elected from the state and the union territories. It is only saying combinedly from the state and the union territories, how many members shall be elected? 238 members, and overall 12 members can be nominated. But however, we will have to have an understanding that out of this 238 members, how many seats are to be given to each and every state, how many seats are to be given to every union territories. For that also the constitution has, or the Constituent Assembly has given one principle, and what is the principle based on which they have decided is on the basis of what is called as population. And in fact, the Constituent Assembly did not allow any further body to decide all those things. They have decided themselves on the basis of population. And where do we actually get the information of how many seats shall be allocated to each and every state and union territory? That it is given in the Schedule 4 of the Constitution. So, where do you get this information? It is there in the Schedule 4 of the Constitution. The Schedule 4 of the Constitution, if you go there, against every state, you will see as to how many seats are allocated to a particular state from Rajya Sabha. Can anyone tell me which is the state therefore will have the maximum number of seats? Of course, it is Uttar Pradesh. Can anyone tell me the number of seats? 80 is for the Lok Sabha elections. I am asking about the Rajya Sabha. Yes, it is 31. So, it is actually 31 seats that is given to the Uttar Pradesh from the state of, from the state of Uttar Pradesh in the Rajya Sabha. But where do you get this information? It is all there in the Schedule 4. So, the Schedule 4, on the basis of population, the seats has been allocated. So, if you see today, the overall seats that has been allocated to all the states and the union territories who are to be elected, though how many maximum number of seats can be allocated? 238 seats can be allocated. So, in the Schedule 4, if you see for the states and the union territories, how many states and how many union territories we have got today?
28 states.
Sure, 28 states and 8 union territories. So, for the 28 states and 8 union territories, only 233 seats has been allocated. That means, in the future, if they want to allocate 5 more seats, they can allocate it. But as of now, how many seats has been allocated? 233 seats plus 12 nominations. Therefore, what is the total strength of Rajya Sabha today presently? It is only 245, although it can be extended up to 250 in the future, because the maximum authorized strength is 250. So, if you go to schedule 4 and if you add up the seats that has been given to each and every state, each and every union territory, you will end up what is called as 233, although it can be extended up to 238. Now, further one more observation you will have to make here. If you see the seats that is allocated, though all the states are allocated at least one seat in the Rajya Sabha, and in fact no state can be left out without having representation in the Rajya Sabha, because you will understand that one of the important reason as to why we have bicameralism in our country. Bicameralism as a part of the constitution. Bicameralism means having two houses. One of the important reason as to why there is bicameralism is the bicameralism, or to be very specific, the Rajya Sabha represents a federal character of our country, and the Council of States is to represent, one of the main reason for them is to represent the interest of the states in the union legislature. Therefore, definitely the state should have representation. But the union territories, do all the union territories have representation in the Rajya Sabha? Not all the union territories have the representation in the Rajya Sabha, because anyways the union territories are not in a federal relationship, because ultimately who governs the union territories? The union territories are under the control of whom? Under the control of the President of India. They are nothing but the territories of the union itself. That is why they are called as union territories. Although some of the union territories may have special status by virtue of some of the provisions in the constitution, but ultimately who is the executive head of all the union territories? It is the President by virtue of article 239 in the constitution. So, therefore, it is not necessary to give Rajya Sabha representation to all the union territories. Only very few union territories have got representation in the Rajya Sabha. So, can anyone tell me how many union territories have got representation in the Rajya Sabha? Very good. There are only 3 union territories as of now got the representation in the Rajya Sabha, that is National Capital Territory of Delhi, Puducherry, and also Jammu and Kashmir, Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. But however, all the states have representation in the Rajya Sabha. Is that clear? So, if you sum up whatever is the representation that is given to the states and the 3 union territories, it will sum up to what is called as 233. And whereas in apart from that, maximum how many members can be nominated? 12 members can be nominated. So, therefore, if you sum up this 233 plus 12, it comes to what is called as 245. Although in the future, if they want to allocate 5 more seats to any states or any union territory, that can be done, because that is allowed in the constitution, but as of now this is the case. Is that clear? Now, the constitution makes it very clear as to how the election shall happen to the Rajya Sabha. What is the way by which the election shall happen to the Rajya Sabha? The election shall happen to the Rajya Sabha with what is called as indirect election. It is not only indirect election, but if you see the full principle, though the election is indirect, it is by a system of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote, and the voting is by partial open ballot system. It is not a secret ballot system, but rather it is partial open ballot. So, please write it down. It is by what is called as proportional representation by means of single transferable vote, and the voting is by what is called as partial open ballot system. You cannot call that as a secret ballot, you cannot call that completely as an open ballot also. It is a partial open ballot system. I will explain you as to what is this particular system. So, to understand that particular system, let me make you understand. Okay, so before I say it is an indirect election, you will have to understand, whenever I say it as an indirect election, one thing has to be very clear in your mind, that the people do not directly vote in the elections. Who to vote in the elections? The people do not directly vote, but rather who vote in the elections? An electoral college. So, whenever it is an indirect election, mostly an electoral college. So, for that particular matter, who constitutes the electoral college for the election of the Rajya Sabha? If you see the electoral college for the election of Rajya Sabha, from every state certain seats are allocated. Say for example, for Uttar Pradesh, how many seats are allocated? Someone told me 31 seats. 31 seats is the right answer. And to elect those 31 members, who will have the right to vote? The electoral college is nothing but the elected members of the legislative assembly of that particular state. So, for every state, when the Rajya Sabha MPs are to be elected, who would be the electoral college? the elected members of the legislative assemblies of that particular state. Therefore, in case of Uttar Pradesh, if 31 MPs are to be elected from the state of Uttar Pradesh, to elect these 31 members, who will act as electoral college? The elected members of the legislative assembly of Uttar Pradesh. Therefore, the question is, how many MLAs are there in the state of Uttar Pradesh? If you have an idea, 403, very good, 403 MLAs are there. So, only these 403 MLAs, 403 MLAs will have the right to vote to elect the MPs to the Rajya Sabha from the state of Uttar Pradesh. Is it clear to all of you? And similarly, for every state, the elected members of the legislative assembly of the particular state would act as an electoral college. Whereas when it comes to union territories, because some of the union territories have also got the representation in the Rajya Sabha. So, when it comes to the union territories who will act as electoral college, the constitution does not give it directly, unlike the states. For the states, the constitution is telling it directly who will act as electoral college, the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the respective state. Whereas when it comes to union territories, the constitution has given the power to the parliament to decide this. And we know that Delhi, if you see, the Delhi Legislative Assembly is created based on what is called as National Capital Territory of Delhi Act. And similarly for Jammu and Kashmir, you have a Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act. And similarly for Puducherry, we have got Government of Union Territory Act 1961, 62, whatever it is. So, these respective acts which is made by the parliament, they can prescribe the electoral college for those union territories. And if you look into those laws, it is similar to that of what is there in the parliament only. So, what is there in case of the states only. In case of states, who is electoral college? The elected members of legislative assemblies of the respective states. So, similarly, these laws which has created the legislature for the union territories, they say that the elected members of the legislative assembly members of the respective union territories would act as the electoral college. Therefore, the net effect is same, but for the union territories it is not directly prescribed in the constitution. For the states it is directly given in the constitution. Is that clear? So, only they act as the electoral college. Now, before we proceed further very quickly, you will have to understand the concept of what is called as proportional representation. So, for that I will just take quickly the example of what is called as Uttar Pradesh. Now, right now in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which party is the ruling party? The BJP is the ruling party. And does you know how many MLAs does the BJP party has got? Approximately any idea how many? No, I think they have got 403. So, definitely they should have the majority. How much? 270 plus. Okay, let us take a rough figure, 270 plus, or let us assume 260, whatever it is. So, let us assume that, and before I explain that, you know that unlike the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. While the Lok Sabha has got a fixed term, but whereas what about Rajya Sabha? The Rajya Sabha does not have any fixed term. The Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. I hope all of you are clear about that. The Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. The Rajya Sabha does not have any term. It is only the members who have got a term of 6 years. It is only the members will retire, but the house will always remain intact. So, the Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. And if you look into the constitution, in case of Rajya Sabha, for the Rajya Sabha, the election happens every second year. So, every second year the election has to happen. Every second year the election has to happen in case of Rajya Sabha, and every second year how many members will be elected? 1/3 of the members will be elected. So, this is what is a principle that is given in the constitution. So, if we have to elect 1/3 of the members every second year, suppose in case of, let us assume Uttar Pradesh, there are 31 seats in Rajya Sabha, but not all the 31 seats are elected at the same time, because the election has to happen every second year. So, roughly around 10 seats will be elected every second year. Is that clear? And for those 10 MPs to be elected from the state of Uttar Pradesh to the Rajya Sabha, how many people will have the right to vote? 403 MLAs will have the right to vote. Now, you tell me, now because the BJP party is a ruling party which has got, let us assume 260 MLAs, or let us assume 258 MLAs or 270 MLAs, whatever it is. Now, will they be able to elect all the 10 MPs to the Rajya Sabha? Because anyways they are in majority. Will they be able to elect all the 10 MPs? Yes? Yes, they will be able to elect all the 10 MPs, but only provided if the election is based on the principle of first past the post system. Now try to understand, if the election is based on the principle of first past the post system, they will be able to elect all the 10 MPs. But the election is not based on the principle of what is called as first past the post system, but the election is based on the principle of what is called as proportionate representation. Now what do you understand by the principle of proportionate representation? What is the principle of election for the Rajya Sabha? It is proportionate representation by means of single transfer of vote, and the voting is by partial open ballot. Now proportionate representation means, this is what you have to understand. Proportionate representation means that the idea is that whatever may be the strength of MLAs in a particular legislative assembly of a particular state, in proportion to that they will be able to elect the MPs. They will not be able to elect all the MPs just because they are the ruling party. They will be able to elect the MPs in proportion to their strength. For that, let me just give you an easy formula to understand. That means anyone to get elected as the MP to the Rajya Sabha, they should also fulfill what is called as an electoral quota. Now remember, whenever there is a first past the post system, there is no need for any electoral quota, because what is a first past the post system? First past the post system is very simple. Whoever get the maximum number of votes, they will be elected. They need not get any fixed number of votes, but electoral quota means they need to get a fixed number of votes. And when I say proportional representation by means of single transfer vote, whenever the word single transfer vote comes, yesterday itself I explained that whenever the word single transfer vote comes, then they can give multiple preferences. But definitely they should give what? They should give first preference, and they can give only one first preference. A single voter cannot give more than one first preference, but he can give the other preferences, but only one first preference. Therefore, let us assume that this election happens to the MPs in case of the Uttar Pradesh to the Rajya Sabha. In that particular case, how many eligible voters will be there for the elections? 403. And how many MPs are to be elected? Let us take the example of 10, not because every second year 1/3 of the members are to be elected. So therefore 403 divided by 10 plus 1 plus 1. So can anyone tell me what would be the number here? If you just divide 403 by 11, and whatever is the value that you get, you add that by 1. This is a rough formula I am trying to give, but the exact formula under the Representation of People Act is little different. That is just that they have to multiply that by 100, the values, but just for you to understand in a rough manner, I am giving this. What would be the value? 37 approximately. Okay, so let us keep approximately this to be 37. That means what is the understanding you had? The understanding you should have is that for a particular person to be elected as a MP to the Rajya Sabha, they should have at least first preference vote, which is given by how many MLAs? By 37 MLAs. If 37 MLAs give first preference to one particular candidate, then he may be elected. But one MLA cannot give first preference to more than one candidate. Therefore, the next set of 37 MLAs are required to elect the another MP to the Rajya Sabha. So in this way, we will have to see any party which is the ruling party, how many maximum number of this 37 they may have. Therefore, though they may be the ruling party, they will not be able to elect all the 10 MPs to the Rajya Sabha. Say for example, out of 270, let us assume, how many 37 can be there out of 270? Maximum how much? Maximum 8 is also not possible, I think, maybe 7. Maybe 7 is possible. Some extra MLAs may be there, but only I think 7 is possible. Therefore, though they may be a ruling party, they will not be able to elect all the MPs in the Rajya Sabha. And this system is basically what is called as proportional representation. Now, what do you mean by proportional representation? Proportional representation is a system that any party would be able to elect the MPs from their particular legislative assembly in proportion to their strength in the legislative assembly. They cannot elect everyone just because they are the ruling party. Suppose let us assume that an opposition party is there. Suppose let us assume Samajwadi party. If the Samajwadi party has, even if they have, let us assume 75 MLAs in the legislative assembly of Uttar Pradesh, how many MPs they will be able to elect? They will be able to elect 2 MLAs because it is in proportion to their population, it is in proportion to their strength in the legislative assembly of Uttar Pradesh. So this principle is basically what is called as proportional representation. Is that clear to all of you? So proportional representation, single transfer vote means that they can give preferences. So there also these preferences may apply. So you just remember they can give preferences. And then the next thing is what is called as partial open ballot system. Now, what do you mean by partial open ballot system? What we have learned as to what is an open ballot system? An open ballot system means that they have to vote in front of everyone. A secret ballot system means they vote in secret. So, in between these two things is what is called as partial open ballot. So, how the system of election happens in Rajya Sabha? The system of election happens in Rajya Sabha in such a way that whenever an MLA votes in the election, the MLA does not vote it in front of others, but every party can nominate a representative, and that representative is someone who is nominated by the party. So, the other MLAs, before putting their ballot in the ballot box, they have to show to whom they have voted to the party representative. So, one party representative will be nominated by every party. So, that person, the MLAs, has to show the vote to whom they have voted to the party representative, because with regard to the MP election in Rajya Sabha, the party can give directions, and the party can also verify whether the vote has been given in accordance with what is called as the party directions. Suppose if the MLA does not disclose the vote to the party representative, then that vote becomes an invalid vote. So, it is mandatory under the rule that he has to disclose to the party representative, but he does not disclose to everyone, only to the party representative. So, therefore, it is what is called as partial open ballot system. Now, the important question is, so if any MLA cross votes apart from what direction which is given by the party, is he or she liable to be disqualified under the anti-defection law?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Can he or she disqualified under the anti-defection law?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Yes.
How many of you think yes? Yes, they are liable to be disqualified. Yes, how many of you think no? They are not liable to be disqualified. How many of you think that no idea? So, better we will wait for the answer. Okay. Now, please tell me, what is this anti-defection law? Anti-defection law is someone who changes the party loyalty, which also includes somebody vote contrary to the party direction. One of the ground on which anti-defection law applies, any member of parliament or any member of state legislature vote contrary to the party direction, then he or she is liable to be disqualified under the anti-defection law. Now, considering this particular fact, you tell me whether the anti-defection law will apply or not. So, how many of you think that the anti-defection law will apply? But the anti-defection law does not apply in this case. So, what is the reason? The reason being that the Supreme Court has made it very clear that the anti-defection law will apply only to those things which are considered to be what is called as a parliamentary proceedings. Now, what are parliamentary proceedings? Parliamentary proceedings are basically the functions of the parliament. Say for example, a law making function, a debate in the parliament, a motion that is introduced in the parliament. When these things are happening in the parliament and when party gives a direction, and if somebody votes contrary to the party direction or abstain from voting in the elections, then in that particular case the anti-defection law will apply. But voting in the Rajya Sabha election is not part of the parliamentary proceedings. You are an electoral college who is given the right to vote, but this is not a general and a normal function of the parliament to do, and that is not part of what is called as a parliamentary proceedings. Therefore, in this particular case, the anti-defection law will not apply even if they vote contrary to the party direction. But that does not mean that the party can take disciplinary action. The party can take disciplinary action against the individual, but this act will not be covered under what is called as the anti-defection law. Is that clear to all of you? So, this is the basic understanding you should have. So, cross voting in the Rajya Sabha elections does not amount to anti-defection law, but the party can take disciplinary action. So, what kind of disciplinary action the party can take? The party can expel from the party, suspend his membership, whatever the party may take, but however he would continue to be a member of parliament or a member of state legislature. So, in this case a member of state legislature, because anti-defection law will disqualify him from being a member of legislative assembly. That cannot be done, but the party is free to take any disciplinary action, but the anti-defection law does not apply. Is that clear to all of you? If any, you mean to say when any political party gives any direction through the whip of the political party and that particular party member is not acting according to the direction which is given by the whip, Yes, normally under such a condition the anti-defection law will apply. Now try to understand under what circumstance anti-defection law will apply. The anti-defection law will apply only in case if a particular member of parliament or a member of state legislature has not obeyed to the directions of the party whip in relation to a parliamentary proceeding. Now what does it mean by parliamentary proceeding? A parliamentary proceeding means the functions that is normally to be done by the parliament or by the state legislature. What they are supposed to do normally? They can introduce bills, they can discuss about the bills, the parliament can amend the constitution, they can introduce no confidence motion, they can introduce any of the other motions like the adjournment motion, there can be discussions. In all these cases, whenever it is put to vote, when the party is giving the direction, if somebody is acting contrary to that, that will be covered within the definition of what is called as parliamentary proceedings. So, in a parliamentary proceedings, if they do not abide by the direction which is given by the party, then the anti-defection law will apply. But in case of election to the Rajya Sabha, the Supreme Court held that election to the Rajya Sabha, voting in the Rajya Sabha elections by the legislative assembly members would not amount to what is called as a parliamentary proceeding. That is an election process, that is not part of the functioning of the legislative process. Therefore, please listen. Therefore, in this particular case, the anti-defection law will not apply. So, this is what is the judgment that is given by the court. You just go and bring that particular judgment that he was disqualified on the grounds of anti-defection law, then we will discuss about this. As of now, the judgment of the court is cross voting in the Rajya Sabha elections would not amount to what is called as the anti-defection law, because it is not considered to be what is called as a parliamentary proceeding. I do understand that you might have read something, you please make a little bit of more research, and then whether you confirm that who was that MLA, where he has voted, when the anti-defection law is applied, whether he has been expelled under the anti-defection law. If you can bring those things, then we will discuss further on this. Without those proof, we cannot discuss, because this is the Supreme Court has already told this. Yes. When the parliament performing quasi-judicial functions. See, whether it is coming in within the provision of what is called as a parliamentary proceedings. Now, quasi-judicial functions may also fall within the ambit of what is called as the quasi-judicial functions, but voting in an election does not fall under the quasi-judicial functions. So, here the Supreme Court has already made it very clear, this is not part of what is called as a parliamentary proceedings. Therefore, the anti-defection law is not likely to apply in this particular case. But whereas when they are performing any parliamentary proceedings, then the anti-defection law will apply in that particular case. All right. So, please come to the continuation of what we are discussing. Okay, so we are just looking into this proportional representation and by means of what is called as single transfer vote, and the voting is by what is called as open ballot. Have you understood as to what is open ballot? Have you understood as to what is the provision of anti-defection law in this particular case? Alright, so these are the things that you will have to keep in your mind, very, very important. Now, the next thing that you are going to understand is the composition of the House of People. Let us try to understand the composition of the House of People. So, if you see the composition of the House of People, if you see the composition, it says that the composition of the House of People shall not be more than what is called as 530 members. 530 members as in 530 members in case of what is called as the states, and not more than 20 members in case of what is called as union territories. Therefore, what shall be the overall strength of the members of the House of People? The overall members shall not be more than what is called as 550. So, the overall members shall not be more than what is called as 550. But one thing that you will have to remember here is, originally if you see the composition in case of the Lok Sabha, this 550 members was subject to the provision of article 331 in the constitution. Now, can anyone remember what is article 331, because this 550 is subject to the provisions article 330 in the constitution. If you say it is subject to the provision article 330 in the constitution, sorry, article 331 in the constitution, in fact this article 331 in the constitution allows for the President of India to nominate 2 Anglo-Indian members. The President of India can nominate 2 Anglo-Indian members. Suppose if the President feels that the Anglo-Indian community is underrepresented in the Lok Sabha, and that power of the President is based on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. But however, this 2 Anglo-Indian nomination has been now done away with. And what is the amendment based on which it was done away with? It was done away with the 104th Constitutional Amendment Act, because this 2 Anglo-Indian nomination which was given to them was initially only for the period of first 10 years, and subsequently for every 10 years it was extended, and by the 104th Constitutional Amendment Act the extension was not given. So therefore, right now if you see it is only 550. So the total number of members in case of Lok Sabha can be only 550 members. But unlike the Rajya Sabha, the Lok Sabha does not classify as to how many members can be elected and how many members can be nominated, but rather it only classifies as to what is called as how many members shall be elected from the states and how many members can be elected from the union territories, because in this particular case all the members are to be directly elected, unlike the nomination there. Okay, so there for the Rajya Sabha, I spoke about the nomination apart from the elections. And nomination, who can make the nomination? The President can make the nomination, and the President can make the nomination from 4 important fields. The areas include art, science, literature and social service. These are the areas from which the President can nominate, but here it is all direct election. So here if you see it is all direct election. So one important thing that you have to understand with regard to direct election. So what is one of the important condition required for a direct election? Because the constitution is saying not more than 530 in case of states and not more than 20 in case of union territories. That means including all the states, 28 states and 8 union territories, what shall be the maximum number of seats? 550 seats. But to carry out the direct election, try to understand that the entire country, that is 28 states and 8 union territories, has to be divided into smaller constituencies. Only when the entire country is divided into smaller constituencies, then only the elections can happen by direct election. Now why demarcating the constituencies become very important? Because election is based on what is called as direct election. So therefore, who are eligible to vote? The people are eligible to vote. And when the people are eligible to vote, the country has to be divided into smaller constituencies, and from every constituency 1 member can be elected. Therefore, maximum overall including 28 states and 8 union territories, how many constituencies can be created? 550 constituencies can be created by the constitution. Now though the constitution says that the maximum number of seats shall be 550, but the constitution does not provide how many seats shall be given to states and union territories. Unlike the Rajya Sabha, how many seats are allocated? Where it is given? It is given in the Rajya Sabha itself, and it is given in the constitution itself. In the constitution, where it is given? It is given in the schedule 4 of the constitution itself. But that is not the case when it comes to the Lok Sabha. When it comes to the Lok Sabha, the constitution says only one thing, that whoever will decide the number of seats to every state and every union territory, they have to follow one principle. And what is the principle that they have to follow? That they have to follow the principle of population. That on the basis of population, the seats can be allocated to different states and union territories. And then who is authority to do that? That is also not explicitly given in the constitution. So this is what is very, very important. So just listen to me very well here. So when it comes to the Lok Sabha, the constitution does not prescribe the seats to every state and every union territory, but it is only giving the total composition. But it is saying one principle to be followed. And what is the principle to be followed? The principle to be followed is population. So using the principle of population, the seats shall be allocated to the different states and different union territories. Overall to the states, it can be maximum 530, and overall to the union territories, it can be maximum 20. But what is the principle? The seats to be allocated? Population. But now the question is, who is to do that? Who will allocate the seats? the constitution does not say anything directly, rather the constitution says that we are giving this power to the parliament. So, we are giving the power to the parliament, and the parliament shall make a law, and by this law the parliament can empower a particular authority to do this. It can empower an authority to do this, and accordingly the parliament has enacted what is called as the Delimitation Act, and through the Delimitation Act they created what is called as a Delimitation Commission. So, this Delimitation Commission, which is created by the Delimitation Act, which is created by the law that is made by the parliament, that is the Delimitation Act, is authority which will determine the number of seats that may be given to the states and the union territories. But even the Delimitation Commission, which principle they have to follow in allocating the seats to the states and union territories? They have to follow the principle of population. That means any state which will be having more population should be allocated more seats. Any state which is having less population will be allocated less seats. So, it has to be done in proportion to what is called as the population. So, this is exactly what you will have to understand. Is that clear to all of you? So, therefore, try to understand what is the status of this Delimitation Commission. The Delimitation Commission is what type of body? The Delimitation Commission is a statutory body. It is not a constitutional body. It is not an extra constitutional body. Extra constitutional bodies are executive bodies. Rather, it is what is a statutory body created by an act of parliament. So, first such Delimitation Commission was appointed in 1952, then in 1963, then in 1973, then in 2002. So far, we have appointed 4 Delimitation Commissions. Therefore, what is the function of this Delimitation Commission? Let us try to understand this. So, try to follow me very carefully, and if you have any doubt at the end of the discussion, you can ask me the question. Delimitation Commission. So, what type of body is a Delimitation Commission? It is a statutory body. Now, this Delimitation Commission has got some important functions to perform. Now, why this Delimitation Commission has got important functions to perform? Because in the constitution, the seats were not allocated to different states and union territories. Rather, now who has to do that particular job? It is a Delimitation Commission. So, the first and foremost function to the Delimitation Commission is allocation of number of seats. Allocation of number of seats to every state and the union territories. So, for all the states and for all the union territories, who will allocate the number of seats? It is the Delimitation Commission. Now, say for example, I have taken the example of Uttar Pradesh, and in the Rajya Sabha, we know that Uttar Pradesh has got 31 seats. And from where do you know that they have got 31 seats? Because it is mentioned in the Schedule 4 of the Constitution. Similarly, if I ask this question, that how many seats are there to the Lok Sabha in the state of Uttar Pradesh? How many seats? 80 seats. How do you know this? It is not mentioned in the Constitution, but how do you know that yes, 80 seats has been given to the Lok Sabha from the state of Uttar Pradesh? How? It is prescribed by delimitation. Yes, of course, it is the duty of the delimitation to do that, but do you know where it is exactly mentioned? It has to be mentioned somewhere. Do you know where it is mentioned? See, the Delimitation Commission is a statutory body which will pass orders, and those orders are called as delimitation orders. Anyways, that has a force of law. But whatever orders that is passed by the Delimitation Commission, it is all consolidated and it is put in the schedule to a particular act. And do you know in which act that these delimitations orders are consolidated and placed in a schedule of a particular act in our country? The Constitution has a schedule. Similarly, there is a lot of laws in our country, they also have a schedule. And in the schedule to one of the act, it gives clearly the information as to how many seats has been allocated to different states and different union territories in our country to the Lok Sabha election, and that law is nothing but the Representation of People Act 1950. In the schedule to the Representation of People Act 1950, all these things are there. Although who will decide the number of seats? The Delimitation Commission. So, the first and foremost job of the Delimitation Commission is to allocate the number of seats to different states and different union territories. But however, even this commission, what is the principle they will apply in deciding the number of seats to each and every state and your union territory? They will decide it on the basis of population. So, therefore, the question is, which population should be taken into account? So, when asked a question of which population should be taken into account, the constitution gives an answer to that. The constitution says that the latest census should be taken into account while determining what is called as delimitation. That means, whenever the election happens, before the election, the latest census should be taken into account by the Delimitation Commission. So, in the original constitution, which population was prescribed? The latest census and the population under the latest census, but that latest census was replaced later by what is called as the 1971 census by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976. So, today which census is likely to be used? Because the latest census word was replaced by 1971 census, and this 1971 census is likely to continue till the year 2000. So, till 2000 any election will happen in our country, the Delimitation Commission will take into account which census to allocate the number of seats? 1971 census. Is that clear? It will be based on 1971 census. But again, what has happened to this is, again a constitutional amendment was brought in by the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act in 2001, and they still replaced whatever was this 1971 census. They continued with this, but initially the 1971 census is still there 2000, but that was replaced with what is called as the year 2026, or in other words, it is still the first census after 2026. Which census is likely to be taken into account? It is again the 1971 census. Is that clear? Therefore, try to understand for all practical purpose, after 1971 till this point of time, there has been no changes in the number of seats that has been allocated to the various states in the Lok Sabha. Is that clear to you? Because anyways, which census is used? Only the 1971 census. Therefore, the number of seats may change only after 2026, provided the latest census happens after 2026. So, any census that will happen after 2026, and if any delimitation is to happen after that, which census they are likely to take into account? They will take into account the latest census. But till the time the first census happens after the year 2026, even before that any delimitation happens, which census will be taken into account? Only the 1971 census will be taken, and because there is no change in population, there will be no change in the number of seats. Only when there is change in population, then only there can be change in the seats. Now, in fact, why the population should be a principle to be taken into account in the constitution? Can anyone think? They could have taken any of the other principle. Probably they could have taken into account what is called as the territory, they have taken into account the natural resources, in addition, or any other factors, but instead of that they want to take into account the population, because they wanted to give parity in representation. Population is the only way that they can ensure parity between different states. Okay, if any state is having more population, more seats, less population, less seats. So, in order to ensure this particular parity through the population, they have taken population into account. So, what is the first principle? The first principle is to determine the number, the first function is to determine the number of seats. Okay, first the Delimitation Commission has determined, okay, this is the number of seats that will be given to each and every state based on population. Suppose let us assume the Delimitation Commission has come to a conclusion that for the state of Uttar Pradesh 80 seats will be given. But how do you think that the Election Commission can carry out the election just by knowing that, okay, Uttar Pradesh will have 80 seats? Will it be possible for the Election Commission of India to carry out the election just by knowing that Uttar Pradesh will be given 80 seats? Say for example, Maharashtra will be given 48 seats, or say for that matter West Bengal will be given 42 seats. Is that sufficient enough for the Election Commission to carry out the election? For the Election Commission to carry out the Election Commission to prepare the electoral roll, and for the Election Commission to prepare the electoral roll, they have to do it every constituency wise. That means the second important function that the Delimitation Commission is interested with is not only determining the number of seats, but they shall also draw the boundaries of every constituencies. What shall be the next important rule? That they shall draw the boundaries of every constituencies. That is very, very important. That means it is not the role of the Delimitation Commission only to determine 80 seats in case of Uttar Pradesh, but in addition to that, what they shall do? They shall also draw the boundaries of all these 80 constituencies. It is also their responsibility to redraw the entire Uttar Pradesh into 80 smaller constituencies. Now, once they demarcate the boundary of every constituency in Uttar Pradesh, will it not be easy for the Election Commission of India to prepare the electoral roll as per the constituency and to conduct the election? So, therefore, whose role is to draw the boundaries for every constituency? The Delimitation Commission. The constitution makes it very clear that redrawing the boundaries or drawing the boundaries of these constituencies should also be on the basis of population. Because here you are taking into consideration the population to ensure parity between different states. But here you are ensuring the population as a basis to ensure parity between different constituencies within a state. It should not be possible that one constituency is having more population, other constituency is having less population. So, as far as possible, it should be a similar population. Therefore, here also it is on the basis of population. But now the question is, which year population shall be taken into account? Which year population shall be taken into account? Here. So, even here also the constitution says it shall be the latest census, but that word latest census has been amended. And do you know what is the census that is used here? It is 2001 census. It is 2001 census, and this 2001 census is likely to continue till the year 2026. That is the first census after 2026. The census that is likely to continue is the 2001 census. This is brought in by the 87th Constitutional Amendment Act. So, here the census is what? The 2001 census. Is that clear? So, now you can ask me, sir, what is the rationality of using the 2001 census here? Here it is 1971 census. See, now try to understand. Here 1971 census, and what is the reason for 1971 census here? This is to ensure parity between different states. And we understand that the reason for 1971 census is in the president election itself. What was the reason for that? Because the southern states told that we are reducing the population and we are losing out of it. Therefore, to ensure parity between different states, they have gone back to the 1971 census. But once a number of seat is decided for every state based on 1971 census, this 2001 census is not going to change the number of seats, because 80 seats for Uttar Pradesh is decided on which census? 1971 census. But this 2001 census is only to redraw the boundaries of the constituencies. Now, why they have to take up almost the latest census to redraw the boundaries is because of the fact that even within a state there could be a lot of internal migration. Because of the internal migration, the demography might change, and therefore, to ensure parity between different constituencies, they are trying to use what is called as the latest census. When I use the word latest census, the last Delimitation Act was passed in 2002. And at the time 2001 was the latest census. So, they fixed the 2001 census till the year 2026. Okay. So, as of now, for this particular purpose, the census that you are using is 2001 census. Now, there is one more important function that is to be played by the Delimitation Commission. So, what are the functions we have seen so far? One is allocation of total number of seats and the drawing of boundaries of those constituencies. And in addition to that, one more important function that the Delimitation Commission has to play is to allocate the reserved constituencies. For the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe communities. Now, we know that there are certain seats that is reserved to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe communities in the constitution. And here also the constitution says that the seats shall be reserved to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe as per what is called as population. So, here also it is on the basis of what is called as population. That means, suppose let us take the example, the total number of seats for Uttar Pradesh is how much? 80 seats. And suppose let us assume there are 10% population in the state of Uttar Pradesh belong to scheduled caste. Therefore, in proportion to the population, how many seats has to be reserved for the scheduled caste community? 8 seats. So 8 seats will be reserved for the scheduled caste community. And how many seats shall be reserved to the scheduled tribe? Suppose let us assume 5% of the population is scheduled tribe, then 4 seats to the scheduled tribe community. So therefore, out of 80 seats, 12 seats are reserved, out of which 8 seats for the scheduled caste community and 4 seats for the scheduled tribe. So what would be the general constituencies after excluding this? There will be 68 constituencies. That means try to understand, in those 68 constituencies anybody can contest, but whereas the constituencies reserved for the scheduled caste, who can contest? Only a scheduled caste candidate. And the seats which is reserved for a scheduled tribe, who can contest? Only a scheduled tribe candidate. This is to ensure the inclusion of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in the legislature, alright. But this is also be done on the basis of population. So the question is, which population, which census? This is also based on 2001 census, and this 2001 census is likely to continue till the 2026 or the first census after 2026. Is it clear to all of you? Therefore, these are the 3 primary functions that is to be played by the Delimitation Commission. It should be very clear to all of you. So what is the first and foremost function to be played by the Delimitation Commission? To allocation of number of seats. Whenever the Delimitation Commission goes to a particular state, they will pass a delimitation order first. They will say the total number of seats. Then they will also work on drawing the boundaries. And in fact, this drawing the boundaries will happen before every election almost, because there can be internal migration. But however, what shall be the census that they shall take into account? Till the first census after 2026, they shall take into account only the 2001 census. Is that clear? And then they will also allocate the seats to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in proportion to their population. They are also in proportion to their population. Which census shall be taken into account? 2001 census. And one important thing, it is not that the same constituency will be always reserved for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. These constituencies will keep on rotating. So therefore, people in different parts of the state will have the advantage. And who will decide that how this rotation shall happen? That will also be decided by the Delimitation Commission. So these things will be done by the Delimitation Commission. Now these are all the important functions that is done by what is called as the Delimitation Commission. And remember, the Delimitation Commission is a so much powerful body that the orders of Delimitation Commission cannot be challenged in a court of law. Ordinarily, the orders of Delimitation Commissions cannot be challenged in a court of law. Though they can be discussed in the parliament, these orders, even the parliament does not have the power to change these orders. Now remember, what will happen if the parliament will have the power to change these orders? If the parliament will have the power to change these orders, then the majority party will change the orders and they will delimit the constituencies as per their convenience, because they know the social profile, they will know the demographic, and accordingly where they have an advantage, they can create small constituency, big constituency, and it may be in their favor. That is why this has to be done by an independent Delimitation Commission. Is that clear? And their orders cannot be changed by the parliament. Can they be challenged in the court? So ordinarily the Supreme Court or any of the court will not entertain, but there is an exception also. If at all the court finds a malafide intention behind any delimitation orders, then on the grounds of malafide, then they may entertain petitions. So normally they are not subject to what is called as judicial review, but they may be subject to judicial review on the grounds of what is called as malafide. So this is what you should understand about the Delimitation Commission and the functions played by the Delimitation Commission. Now before I complete this particular topic, let us also try to have an idea about the composition of the Delimitation Commission. So who constitute the composition of the Delimitation Commission? The Delimitation Commission is usually headed by a retired or usually a retired judge of a Supreme Court, a retired judge of the Supreme Court. And in addition to the retired judge of a Supreme Court, then you have the Chief Election Commissioner himself or any of the election commissioners as nominated by the Chief Election Commissioner will be the other member. So chairman is usually a retired judge of a Supreme Court, and the first member is usually the Chief Election Commissioner himself or any election commissioner nominated by the Chief Election Commissioner, and the second member is usually the State Election Commissioner of the respective state, because I told that the delimitation will happen state by state. So whenever they go to a particular state, the state election commissioner of the respective state will be the second member. So they will work, they will do all these functions and they will pass the orders. Then they go to other state. When they go to the other state, the state election commissioner will vary. Other two persons will remain the same. So in this way they will function. So this is the composition and this is their function, and the orders of the delimitation commissions are so powerful that it cannot be even challenged in the court of law, except on the grounds of what is called as malafide. The parliament does not have the power to amend them and change them, although they can be discussed in the parliament, but the parliament cannot change it. So this is what you should know about the delimitation commission. Is that clear to all of you? So be very clear about the population that is taken into consideration for different purpose. Now once a delimitation is done, then the next process is what? The conduct of elections. The delimitation has to precede the conduct of elections. Is that clear? Without delimitation, the elections cannot happen. Now the constitution makes it very clear, the election to the Lok Sabha is by what type of elections? Direct election. Now we know the number of seats, we know the boundaries, we also know the reserved constituencies. Then it is the responsibility of the Election Commission of India to prepare the electoral roll constituency wise and to conduct what is called as election. And for that also the constitution says the election is by what is called as direct election. Direct election means we also follow the principle of what is called as one man one vote. It is not unlike the presidential election where the vote will have different value. Here we follow the principle of what? One man one vote, and the principle of the election is again based on the principle of first past the post system. And what do you understand by first past the post system? That anyone who has got the highest number of vote will be declared to be the winner. There is no need for any minimum electoral quota. So according to that, the elections will happen, and anyone who has got the highest number of vote will be declared to be the winner of the election. And who will have the right to vote in this particular election? Anyone who has attained 18 years of age and a citizen of India and not disqualified under the law, they will have the right to vote. So basic age requirement is what? Anyone who has attained 18 years of age, they will be eligible, and that 18 years of age is also very important, because in the original constitution the age that was given is 21 years and that was reduced to what is called as 81 years by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act. So try to remember all these facts. So I think with that the election of the Lok Sabha is also over. So I am sure that you have understood the election of the Lok Sabha as well as the election of what is called as Rajya Sabha. Now if you have any questions, please ask me the questions.
Who appoints the chairman of the delimitation?
The law, according to the law, I think it is the central government which appoints the chairman of the Delimitation Commission. It is all prescribed in the Delimitation Act.
It's not the president.
The central government as per the law. Okay. Yes, it can be discussed. It can be discussed, but it cannot be amended. It cannot be changed. It can be discussed. Any other questions?
So the number of seats given to each state in Rajya Sabha, on basis of which census is that presented?
That is all done in the beginning itself. In the beginning itself, and now when they are doing it, they will apply probably the latest census or even the 1971 census.
But all they change, then they will.
If at all,
If they change, then
they will change, because when they will change, they will change based on when they create a new state, when they merge a state, when they create a new union territory. So according to them they change, but for that also as a principle they are applying the 1971 census only. They are not applying the latest one. Okay.
has it ever been changed?
Yes, it has to change, because say for example, now recently Telangana was created. When Telangana was created, before when it was United Andhra Pradesh, there were 18 seats to Rajya Sabha to the United Andhra Pradesh. After Telangana was created, they have given 7 seats to Telangana and 11 was retained by Andhra Pradesh. Therefore, overall it is the same, but because of the internal reorganization, probably they have to change it. Okay, and they will go back to the 1971 census for doing all those things. All right. So, is that clear to all of you? Okay. So now please come to the questions. Let us try to solve some questions probably, and then we will try to come back to this continuation of this. Okay, is that clear to all of you? So try to listen carefully and try to revise it today, otherwise you will again forget, and especially the census and all those things you may forget it. Online students, if you have any questions, you can just put it in the comment box. I will try to address those questions as well. Sir, will the delimitation alter after 2026? Will change the Rajya Sabha seats? Will the delimitation after 2026 change the Rajya Sabha seats? What do you think? Will the delimitation change the Rajya Sabha seats after 2026? Delimitation has nothing to do with the Rajya Sabha seats. Delimitation is only with regard to what? Only with regard to the Lok Sabha. And in fact, do you know that post 2026, the seats in the parliament may itself be increased through a constitutional amendment, and that is why already the new parliament is constructed. So post 2026, when they apply the new census, probably they may increase the number of seats, but all that requires a constitutional amendment, because in the constitution first they have to change the limit. What is the number of maximum limit for the Lok Sabha presently? 550, but accordingly it may be increased. The constitution may be amended, it can be increased, and then after 2026, when they put the new delimitation exercise, according to the latest census, they may allocate different seats to the different states. That is very likely to happen, but it can happen only with a constitutional amendment. Okay, consider the question here. Which of the following constitutional amendment act has done away with the nomination for the Anglo-Indians in the House of People? Which amendment? It is the 104th constitutional amendment. It is the 104th constitutional amendment. Come to the next question. Consider the following statements regarding the seats allocated to the Lok Sabha. The total number of seats allocated to the Lok Sabha from every state is presently based on 2001 census. Is it based on 2001 census? It is not based on 2001 census, rather it is based on 1971 census. So therefore this is wrong. The Delimitation Commission, which is entrusted with the above function, is a constitutional body. Is it a constitutional body? What type of body is it? It is a statutory body. There is no representation from the union territories in case of Lok Sabha. Is that true? In fact, try to understand, each and every single union territory has got representation in the Lok Sabha. That is again very important. Every state has a representation in the Rajya Sabha, and every union territory also has a representation in the Lok Sabha. But when it comes to Rajya Sabha, not all union territories are having the representation, but every state is having a representation in the Rajya Sabha. In case of Rajya Sabha, how many union territories are having representation? Only 3 union territories. So try to remember this as well. So how many of the statements given above are incorrect? 3 only. Okay. So these are the 2 questions I wanted to solve. I will just touch up one small topic and then we will take a break. Okay, so come to the next topic, that is the duration of the houses. If you see the duration of the houses, as it is given in the constitution, the duration of the Lok Sabha is normally 5 years. The duration for the Lok Sabha is given. Normally, what is the duration of Lok Sabha? 5 years. But again, it is not necessary that the Lok Sabha will complete a 5-year term. It might be possible that they may be dissolved even before that. It might also be possible that they are extended beyond a period of 5 years. Is it possible that they can be extended beyond a period of 5 years? Yes, that is also possible under the constitution. But first let us try to understand under what circumstances they can be dissolved earlier. What is the circumstances under which they can be dissolved earlier? When there is a no confidence motion against the government. That means when the government loses a majority, then it may be dissolved earlier. Who is authority to dissolve the Lok Sabha? The President is the authority. The President is the authority to dissolve the Lok Sabha. So, whenever there is a no confidence motion against the government, even though the Lok Sabha has not completed 5 years term, the Lok Sabha may be dissolved by the President. Second reason is, there is no confidence motion, but even when the Council of Ministers advise to dissolve the Lok Sabha, then such an advice is also binding upon the President. Now, tell me, why would the Council of Ministers advise to dissolve the Lok Sabha even before the term is over? Does it not look little crazy that why the Council of Ministers would advise the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha? Say, let us assume the Lok Sabha has completed only 4 years. The government is anyways having the majority, but still if the Council of Ministers are advising the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha, still the President can dissolve it. But why would the Council of Ministers advise the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha if they have 1 more year to go? They have a majority. To prove the majority, why they have to dissolve the list? If the dissolve means and the government is dismissed, then they have to go for a new election. Very good, to win the next election, because the government strategically might think that after 1 year now that their chances of winning the election is less. Sometimes if they go for an early election, now they understand the pulse of the people, probably they feel that at this moment they have a better chance of winning the next election, therefore they may get another 5-year term. 1 year from now their chances of winning the election is not very high. So therefore they may advise to go for what is called as dissolution of Lok Sabha, and if they advise, then also the President can dissolve the Lok Sabha. But these are all very rare chances, but normally the Lok Sabha is dissolved usually 5 years, when it completes 5 years. When there is a no confidence motion, it is dissolved earlier. We have examples also, but sometimes the Council of Ministers may also advise earlier dissolution also, then also it can be dissolved. But there is also a ground that the Lok Sabha term can be extended beyond a period of 5 years. There is only one circumstance where the Lok Sabha term can be extended beyond a period of 5 years, when there is a national emergency proclaimed under Article 352 of the Constitution. So, whenever there is a national emergency that is proclaimed by the President under Article 352 of the Constitution, then the term of the Lok Sabha can be extended. Do you know how long the term of the Lok Sabha can be extended? The term of the Lok Sabha can be extended indefinitely. If the question comes how long it can be extended indefinitely, but 1 year at a time. But it can be extended indefinitely. And who is authority to extend the term of the Lok Sabha? Who is authority? President, Prime Minister?
President on the recommendation of Prime Minister.
President on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, not on the recommendation of Council of Ministers, only Prime Minister? Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Anyways, not on the recommendation of Prime Minister or on the recommendation of the Council of Ministers. The authority to extend the life of the Lok Sabha is the Parliament. The Parliament has to make a law, and by that law they can extend the life of the Lok Sabha. And every time the Parliament makes a law, how much they can extend? They can extend it by a period of 1 year. So every year the Parliament can make a law, and if they want they can extend it indefinitely. In fact, if you see the third national emergency which was brought in 1975, that Lok Sabha came into existence in 1971, and that Lok Sabha should come to a conclusion by 1975. But that Lok Sabha was terminated, that Lok Sabha was dissolved only in 1977. The Parliament has made the law and they have extended the life of the Lok Sabha. And that is possible because there was national emergency in our country, and the Parliament has the power to extend the life of the Lok Sabha. And how long? Indefinitely, but 1 year at a time. Is that clear? Now, come to the Rajya Sabha. If you see the Rajya Sabha, unlike the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. What does it mean when I say that the Rajya Sabha is a permanent house? That unlike the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved. It is only the members who have got a tenure and not the house. The house has no tenure for itself. The house is a permanent house. Whereas in case of Lok Sabha, the house also has a term and the members also have a term, but not in case of Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha is a permanent house, because unlike the Lok Sabha, in case of Rajya Sabha, the election to all the members does not happen at the same time. In case of Rajya Sabha, you will understand that the election happens every second year, and every second year 1/3 of the members retire. Therefore, at any point of time, some members are always there in the house. Therefore, the house would continue to be a permanent house. Now, tell me, when the first Rajya Sabha elections happened? 19? Very good. The first Rajya Sabha elections happened in 1952, and at the time all the members were elected. In 1952, the first Rajya Sabha election came, and at the time all the members were elected. Now, what happened to ensure that the Rajya Sabha continues to be a permanent house? After 2 years, by lot it was decided 1/3 of the members will retire within second year. Unfortunately, the first 1/3 members have to retire in the second year itself. Therefore, the first 1/3 members retired when? 1954. So, 1/3 members retired here, and this was decided by a lot system, and therefore, the new 1/3 members were elected. And the new 1/3 members elected in 1954, when they will retire? They will retire only in 1960. Sorry, 1950, okay, 1958, 1960. So, they will only retire here, this first 1/3 member. And the second 1/3 members retired in 1956, again the next 1/3 members were elected. They will retire when? Only in 1962. The third 1/3 members retired in 1958, and again 1/3 members were elected here. So, therefore, it as a cycle went on, that now Rajya Sabha continues to be what is called as a permanent house. But the members will have a term of what? The members will have a term of 6 years. Is that clear? So, these are all the things you will have to keep it in your mind. So, there is also the other topic, that is qualification of the members. This is already we have discussed, so I will just touch upon that, because the qualification of the members, which I already seen, is similar to that of the qualification for the president. Because when you see the qualification for the president, we have touched upon all these things. Now, what are the qualifications for someone to contest election to the parliament, be it Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha? First and foremost qualification is what? Citizen of India. Second, takes an oath or affirmation in front of an authorized authority. Be it Lok Sabha elections or Rajya Sabha elections, does not matter. They have to take an oath in front of an authorized authority. But remember that authorized authority will be appointed by the Election Commission of India. Because who is the one who will conduct election to the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha? It is the Election Commission of India. They have to take oath in front of an authorized authority as appointed by the Election Commission of India. But the only difference when it comes to their election is, if somebody wanted to contest election to the Lok Sabha, what shall be the age for them? It shall be not less than 25 years. Somebody wanted to contest election to the Rajya Sabha, the election is not less than 30 years. And in addition to that, so these qualifications are directly given in the constitution itself. In addition to that, the constitution also says that any other qualifications may also be prescribed by a law that is made by the parliament. And such a law that is made as per this particular provision is the Representation of People Act 1951. And what the Representation of People Act 1951 is saying, in addition to all these qualifications, the Representation of People Act 1951 is saying that they shall also be an elector from any constituency in India. What does it mean when I say that they shall be an elector from any constituency in India? Just now we have seen that how many constituency there in India. Whenever I use the word they shall be an elector from any constituency, the constituencies are only to the Lok Sabha. There are no constituency to the Rajya Sabha. But however, whether you contest to Lok Sabha elections or Rajya Sabha elections, it does not matter. The person should be an elector from any constituency in India. How many constituencies are there? 543 constituencies. So, therefore, he or she should be an elector from any constituency, that is Lok Sabha constituency. That means his or her name has to be registered in the electoral roll in any constituency in India. Or in other words, he or she contesting either election to Lok Sabha or to Rajya Sabha, they should be eligible voter in a Lok Sabha election. Is that clear? That is what he or she should be a voter from any constituency in India. So, this is for someone who wanted to contest election from a general constituency. Now, all these qualifications shall be for someone who wanted to contest election from where? from a general constituency. What is a general constituency? In a general constituency, anybody can contest, not reserved for a particular category. But if someone wanted to contest election from a reserved constituency is what? Reserved for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Then in that particular case, they shall also fulfill one more criteria in addition to all these criteria, that they should also be an individual belonging to that reserved community, and they shall be belonging to an individual belonging to the reserved community anywhere in India, it does not matter. That is what is important. Say for example, a person wanted to contest a constituency reserved for the scheduled caste, say from the state of Andhra Pradesh. Is it possible for someone to contest election for a seat which is there in Andhra Pradesh, say for example from, let us assume, the state of Madhya Pradesh? Is it possible?
Yes.
That he is normally a resident in Madhya Pradesh and his name is in the electoral roll in any constituency in Madhya Pradesh. Is it possible for him to contest election in Andhra Pradesh?
Yes.
Yes, he can contest. But if you want to contest a reserved constituency, then either in Madhya Pradesh or in some other state or in Andhra Pradesh, he should belong to what is called as a reserved community. So his caste should belong to a reserved community, and then only he will be eligible to contest in a reserved constituency. So this is something that you have to keep in your mind. Suppose if you want to contest election, say let us assume in a seat that is reserved for the scheduled tribe, then he should belong to a reserved community, that is scheduled tribe, anywhere in India. So in that particular case, he will be able to contest. Okay, so this is what basically you will have to understand. So this is all the qualifications that you should understand when it comes to conduct of elections, but there are also ground for what is called as disqualification, which we will see it after the break. Okay, so try to go through all those things. If you have any doubts, I will take up your doubts after the break. Okay, so take a break for half an hour. We will again meet at 5 and we will continue with the remaining things. Okay, thank you. Online students, is it audible? We'll just continue the session from where we left, but before I can continue, please give me a confirmation if it is audible to you. Yes, any doubts from the offline students? What is there in your ears? Can you take it out? Where is there is no state? Okay. Of course, if there is no scheduled caste population, how can you reserve the seats? It goes without saying. Although whatever information you are giving, I do not know, but based on whatever you are saying, reservation can be given only when there is a population from that particular community. So when you don't have a reservation, because the principle itself that the reservation has to be in proportion to the population, and when there is no representation of that particular community, how the reservation can be given? So no reservation probably in that case. Yes, any other questions? No, population as a criteria is taken in number of things. Population has nothing to do with what is called as proportional representation itself. Are you talking about a specific type of election? No, population is used to ensure that there is a proportional representation. So when you talk of proportional representation, I was trying to explain as to how it can be called as proportional representation, because the population is a basis on which the seats are allocated. So in that way, population is used to proportionally allocate the seats. That's it. Okay. Yes, somebody asked question. Actually, I don't coordinate the test, but whatever I am covering in the class, it is based on last 15-20 years of UPSC pattern. So I am trying to cover it in such a way that this will help you to definitely do well in your UPSC examination. So when you ask me the question of do I have to cover the 𝐂𝐿𝐭𝐿, that's a personal choice. If you have the time, you can do that. If you feel that I will be left out, others are doing it, because it's mostly a mental thing. But I would strictly say if you do not have the time, and if you still that you want to cover polity, you can just stick to this itself. So this itself will be very challenging, because yesterday I think I told you to revise, you have not, many of them have not revised. So therefore sticking to the itself will be a big challenge. So whatever the notes that you are taking it, whatever the information that you get, going in and revising that. In addition to that, whatever possible from my side, I'll update the current affairs, but you can also, in addition to that, if you come up for certain current affairs, that you can do. I'm quite sure that with that itself you'll be able to do 80% of the question, provided you have a proper good understanding, then only. But if you listen to most of the things but you don't understand, you don't grasp it. So when I say 80% of the question, that each and every word that come out of my mouth is clear to you. Even if it is not clear, that you go and revise it. Therefore you understand it. If you don't understand that, you come back and get it clarified, or in any way you get it clarified. So if you grasp each and every point that is coming out of my mouth in the class, then you can get 80% of the questions right. And 80% of the question is a very high chance, which means it is a very good thing, because all that you need is to clear the examination is what? Maybe 50, less than 50 only. In the last 10 years, never ever it has crossed 50%. It is somewhere around 45%, maybe 42%, sometimes 40% also. So therefore, even if you can get 80% in some of the areas where your strength is, because some students polity Along with that, one or two other subjects may be a strength. For certain other students, certain other areas can be a strength. Therefore, wherever is your strength, you should try to get 80% of the question. 100 out of 100 is not possible. If you focus for 100 out of 100 in one particular subject, then that is to your disadvantage, because you will not have the time to focus on the other areas. Therefore, look into the question paper, what type of questions are coming. Okay, I will try to get maximum in this particular area, then I will move. And how will you satisfied, okay, my preparation is up to the mark? Take last 15 years of question paper, you are able to solve all the questions. Not just just because solve the question, then again you see it, okay, I am feeling comfortable because you already know the answer. No. When you take up a question, you will have to do the question from different dimensions. It is not that you will just solve that particular question, you will solve that entire area. Every statement you will see, because from the statement one more question can be asked, not necessarily the same question will be asked. So, in that way, if you keep preparing, then your confidence will improve. Alright, so you will have to do like that. Alright, any other questions? Somebody was having any other questions? No questions? All clear? Can I ask questions? Okay. Okay, so who can tell me what is the role of the Delimitation Commission? Please raise your hand and tell me what is the role of Delimitation Commission is. Okay. Okay. The primary function you have left out, you are telling the other thing. Yes, allocation of seats first. First is allocation of seats, then the drawing of the boundaries. Then comes reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Okay, a state is not having a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe population, of course then there is no reservation. Only when there is a population, then you are going to reserve the seats. Alright, so what type of body is this Delimitation Commission? It is a statutory body, very important, you will have to remember that. And can the orders of the Delimitation Commissions be challenged in a court of law?
No.
Yes, generally not, but the only exceptional circumstances with if the order itself is a complete pass with a malified intention. So, on a limited ground, it may be subject to what is called as judicial review. Can it be discussed in the parliament? Yes, the parliament can discuss, but they cannot make any changes to that. That is the power of this Delimitation Commission. Sometimes question may also come from their composition. You should also be aware how many times the Delimitation Commission has been established. Once in UPSC this was asked, how many times the Delimitation Commission was established? It was established till this point of 4 times, and I am very sure that the government will appoint a Delimitation Commission post the 2026 census is completed, because that is when they can increase the number of seats, or probably at least they will redraw the number of seats allocated to different states. If you see the number of newspaper reports, the newspaper report suggests that post the 2026 census, whenever it will happen, the new delimitation will actually give more seats to certain states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, because their population kept on increasing. But now the number of seats has continued to be the fixed thing because of the fact which census is applied, 1971 census. So therefore, it is likely to change after the 2026 census. Okay, it is something that you have to keep in your mind. Alright, so now we will move to the next area, that is the disqualification. Yes, I will take up your doubt and then I will move forward.
Sir, anybody who has registered as a voter after 2012, how he is considered in delimitation?
Anyone who is registered after 2012?
2001. We consider the 2001 census for the allocation of boundaries. If anybody is registered after 2001, like I am registered as a voter after 2001, so how it be considered in that? If a lot of people after 2001, a lot of people are being registered in a single constituency as a voter, so it will be a disbalance with other constituencies.
No, you just repeat your question. You are getting, somebody is getting enrolled in the electoral roll only post 2001.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of people of this kind are there in single constituency.
There is no problem after 2001 because post 2001 no delimitation has happened.
Sir, but the people who will be voting in that constituency might be inclined, so the people of other constituency or the...
See, what I am trying to say is, there are only 4 delimitation commission has been appointed. When was the last delimitation commission appointed? In 2002. That means at that time the delimitation commission has carried out a delimitation process. Therefore, after that even the redrawing of boundaries has not happened. What you are talking about is only a particular individual, whether he will be in one constituency and other constituency. That is not the function of the Delimitation Commission. That is a function of the Election Commission of India. The Election Commission of India will put his name in one constituency and other constituency when they prepare the electoral roll. So, for an individual, the Delimitation Commission is not going to do anything. The Delimitation Commission will only draw the boundaries, and based upon the boundaries, then the Election Commission will see whether you fall under one constituency or other constituency depending upon the address proof that you give. So, inclusion and exclusion in the electoral roll is only the function of the Election Commission of India. That is not the function of what is called as the Delimitation Commission. Is it clear?
Sir, I couldn't explain the question actually. It was just that I understood that Election Commission is supposed to manage the electoral roll. He added me an electoral roll of a particular constituency.
Okay.
Many people like me are in the electoral roll of that particular constituency.
Okay. Let us assume constituency X.
Yeah, constituency X, the population has grown. But in constituency Y, the case is not the same. So, will there be a bias in voting?
Of course, there may be. It is not that always there will be a, say for example, in one constituency there is a lot of childbirth. Let us assume. And in order to adjust this only, practically that the idea is that before every election we will do delimitation. But that is not happening. The last Delimitation Commission that was appointed only in 2002. So, for practical purpose we should do that before every election. But we are not doing it. For that purpose we have done only 4 delimitations. But the idea is, the entire idea of delimiting or redrawing the boundaries itself is as far as possible that the population is same. It does not mean that absolutely it will be same. As far as possible we will try to ensure that particular parity, and that may happen only when you do that process regularly, but it is not happening regularly. But the idea itself is to ensure what is called as parity. So, whatever you are asking is very much possible. So, some constituencies suddenly they may be rise in the population. Yes, because of the migration and all those things. But that can be managed only when you do the delimitation before every elections, but which is not the case. Although we can do it, there is provision for that. But it has not happened. Why? Because that we have fixed it only for 2001 census. Anyways, we are not taking into consideration the latest census. So, therefore, post 2000, once you have done the delimitation, unless until you change the census, then there is no use of doing the delimitation again. Okay, so that is the reason that post 2000 the delimitation has not happened, and it will happen most likely after the first census, that will happen after 2026. Alright, shall I move forward? Alright, so we will move forward to the next topic. Come to the next topic, that is the disqualification of the members of the parliament. So, we are trying to understand as to what are the grounds on which the members of the parliament can be disqualified. So, what are the grounds on which the members of the parliament can be disqualified? So, first of all, if you see that these are all the grounds, that is, certain things are given in the constitution, certain things are through the Representation of People Act. Therefore, one thing that you have to keep in your mind is what are the things that is given in the constitution, what are the things under the Representation of People Act. Now, what are the things that is given in the constitution as to how they can be disqualified? If anyone is not a citizen of India or voluntarily gives up the citizenship. In fact, this disqualification is given under Article 102 for the members of the parliament and Article 191 for the members of the state legislature. But it is almost the same as to the grounds on which they can be disqualified. Suppose if a many member of parliament is not a citizen. So, now try to understand that being a citizen of India is not only a qualification to contest election, but being a citizen of India is also conditioned to be a member of parliament. That means even after someone is elected, he or she should continue to be what? Continue to be a member of parliament. You cannot say that I will be a representative of the people, but I am not a citizen myself. That is not possible. So, therefore, even after you get elected, one has to be a citizen of India. So, therefore, if any member of parliament gives up the citizenship, do you know that the citizenship can be voluntarily given away as well? What is the way by which the citizenship can be given up? Say for example, acquire. That is basically what is called as renunciation. Renunciation is voluntarily you can give up. Now, when you acquire the citizenship of some other country, anyways your citizenship will be terminated. The law will come into force and the law will terminate your citizenship. But it might also be possible that one is not taking up the citizenship of any other country, but he also does not want the citizenship of our country. and that he can do by what is called as renunciation. Renunciation is voluntarily giving the citizenship, not necessarily one has taken up the citizenship of other country. But if one takes up the citizenship of other country, anyways his citizenship will be terminated by the application of law. But it does not matter whatever way that you are not a citizen of India. If a member of parliament is not a citizen of India, then that is a ground for his disqualification. Is that clear? So, one is not a citizen of India by any reason, or that he voluntarily gives up the citizenship. So, here it may be because of termination also, here it may be because of deprivation also, but once you talk of voluntarily giving up the citizenship, what does it mean? It is renunciation. Renunciation is voluntarily giving up the citizenship. It does not matter whichever way you are not a citizen of India, then one cannot continue to be a member of parliament, he can be disqualified. The same will apply to the members of the state legislature as well. Second, one who becomes an undischarged insolvent. So, he is an insolvent. So, insolvent is someone who has taken credit from the banking institutions and who is not able to repay it, or he has not repaid it. Then he would be declared to be what is called as an insolvent. Now, whenever anybody turns to be an insolvent, then as per the laws, the banking institution can proceed with what is called as insolvency proceedings. That means they will try to recover this particular loan. So, till the time an agreement is arrived, till the time a settlement is done between these parties, he would be considered to be what is called as an undischarged insolvent. So, if any member of parliament turns to be an undischarged insolvent, that is a ground for his disqualification. The same will apply for a member of the state legislature as well. Third thing is someone who holds what is called as an office of profit. That means any member of parliament or a member of state legislature should not hold on to any office of profit. Now, what is this office of profit? Is it defined in the constitution? No, office of profit is not defined in the constitution. So, what is the office of profit we have learnt? What is that office of profit? What is receivable? Profit. So, any office which is held either under the center, state or the local authorities, by a way of which if any profit is receivable, then that office can be considered to be an office of profit. The key word here is that the profit is receivable. For the online students, this was dealt at yesterday itself, but you just try to understand for those who are just seeing it today, that if any individual occupies any office under the central government or under the state government or under the local authorities, it is normally possible that office will give some profit. It may be in the form of salary, any allowances. So, if any individual receives his salary or profit, it is not the only case it will be seen as office of profit. That means, the office of profit is whether you take those profit or not, but even if the profit is receivable in the first place, if the office provides for the profit, then itself will be considered to be an office of profit. Therefore, what is the condition that is given here? Any member of parliament or a member of state legislature should not hold on to any office of profit. If they hold on to any office of profit, that is a ground for their disqualification. Now, tell me, what about the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers in our country? Do they take salary as ministers from the government exchequer? Is it a post under the central government? They do not take any salary. Is it not an executive post? Any post under the central government, state government, local authorities, it is very much an executive post under the central government. It is of course a post. So, do they not take salary from the government? Are they taking salary? My question is yes. So, are they liable to be disqualified on the grounds of office of profit? So, though that it is an office of profit, but because they are a member of parliament and they are holding an office of profit, being a minister they are holding an office of profit, but there are certain officers which can be exempted from being considered to be an office of profit. And who has a power to exempt certain office from being office of profit? The parliament shall have that power, the parliament shall have the power to make laws and exempt certain officers from being considered to be what is called as an office of profit. Accordingly, based on the power that is conferred upon the parliament has enacted this law, that is the Prevention of Disqualification Act 1959. So, under the Prevention of Disqualification Act 1959, the post of ministers has been exempted. So therefore, the ministers cannot be disqualified just because they are deriving the salary, because that is not considered to be an office of profit based on this particular law. Similarly, for the state legislature also, the state legislature has the power for each and every state to make a law, and by that law they can exempt certain posts from being considered to be what is called as office of profit. So through that law, that most of the ministers in the state are also exempted. Okay, so that is how they are not considered to be what is called as office of profit. And apart from that, any member of parliament or a member of state legislature turns to be having unsound mind, that is also a ground for their disqualification. What does it mean by unsound mind? Suffering from some mental disability. What could be mental disabilities? Can you give me examples of mental disability? Schizophrenia, delusionary disorders, severe depression. So schizophrenia is a very serious disease because they may think randomly as different personality, and delusionary disorders also is a very, that they will think that which has no basis in reality. These are all very dangerous disorders, and with these disorders, if the lawmakers have to make the law, then it becomes extremely dangerous. So therefore, that is also a ground for their disqualification. Alright. Alzheimer's is also one disability because they will forget all the things mostly. So unsound mind is also a ground on which they can be disqualified. So therefore, these grounds are directly given in the constitution. That is, not a citizen of India or voluntarily gives up the citizenship, undischarged insolvent, holds an office of profit, subject to the exceptions by the law made by parliament, unsound mind. But in all these cases, who is the disqualifying authority for a member of parliament? Who is the disqualifying authority? Sure. Who is the disqualifying authority? But the president act on the aid and advice of the council of ministers. So what prevents the ministers today in the union government in advising to dismiss and to disqualify all the members of parliament of the opposition party? If the president is a disqualifying authority. So does it mean the president is going to exercise his power on his own discretion? Is it a discretionary power? So this power is exercised by the president. Very good. This is a power of the president, but here the president acts on the recommendation of the Election Commission of India, not on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Is it clear? So who is going to give the recommendation here? The Election Commission of India, and the Supreme Court has already held that the recommendation of the Election Commission of India is binding upon the president. And the Election Commission of India can do this only after conducting an impartial inquiry. We know that the Election Commission of India is also quasi-judicial body. So whenever they wanted to make this recommendation in the first place, first they should conduct an impartial inquiry. On the basis of the inquiry, then they can make the recommendation to the president. So similarly, all these things are the ground for disqualification of the members of the state legislature as well. So therefore, in all these grounds, that is on the grounds of citizenship, on the grounds of undischarged insolvent, unsound mind, and on the grounds of office of profit, for the members of the state legislature, who is the disqualifying authority? The governor is the disqualifying authority, and the governor acts on the recommendation of whom? The governor acts on the recommendation of State Election Commission. That is not the case. It is the Election Commission of India, because you try to understand what is the role of the Election Commission of India. It is the Election Commission of India which will conduct election to both the parliament as well as the state legislature. What is the role of the State Election Commission? The role of the State Election Commission is only to conduct election to the local bodies. So why would the governor listen to the recommendation of the State Election Commission? So it is a recommendation of whom? It is a recommendation of the Election Commission of India. Please do not get confused. Okay, so this is exactly UPSC will try to confuse you. So it is all on the recommendation of the Election Commission of India. The only thing is, instead of president, there it is the governor. But in addition to that, there are also certain other disqualification, because if you read into Article 102 of the Constitution, Article 102 of the Constitution makes it very clear that they can be disqualified on all these grounds, which is specifically mentioned in Article 102 itself. In addition to that, Article 102 also says that there can be certain other ways of disqualification as determined by the law that is made by the Parliament. Therefore, in addition to the direct disqualification which is given in the Constitution, Who else may prescribe the disqualification? The Parliament may by a law can prescribe, and accordingly the Parliament has made a law, that is a Representation of People Act 1951, and under the Representation of People Act 1951 there are also certain grounds for disqualifications. Now, what are those grounds for disqualification under the Representation of People Act? So, these are all some of the grounds which is prescribed under the Representation of People Act. Now, what are those things? One is if somebody is guilty of any electoral offence or corrupt practice. That means the Representation of People Act itself considers certain offences to be a corrupt practice or what is called as an electoral offence. So, therefore, if anybody has engaged in any corrupt practice or electoral offence and by which they have won the elections and become a member of parliament, still they can be disqualified on this particular ground. So, can you give me an example of what can be considered to be a corrupt practice or electoral offence? Very good. Booth capturing, anything else? Use of money and muscle power, coercive powers, money power, misuse of government machinery, misuse of government resources for winning the elections, because you know that when the elections happen, anyways that one party will be there in power. Although there is a model code of conduct, but still there is a party which is there in already power. So, it might be possible for the party in power to misuse the government resources and government machinery. So, if they use those things in their favor in winning the election, then that can be seen as a corrupt practice or an electoral offence. Can you say a historic case in our country where the election of a famous personality was declared to be invalid on the grounds of what is called as corrupt practice? The election of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was declared to be invalid in 1975 by the Allahabad High Court on the grounds of what is called as corrupt practice. And that is a very famous case which is called as the Raj Narayan case, and that was also considered to be one of the reasons for the national emergency subsequently. But see, try to understand the corrupt practice is a ground for their disqualification, alright. Now, when the High Court declares, in fact, where such a petition can be challenged as to a particular member of parliament or a member of state legislature has engaged in corrupt practice is only in the High Court concerned, wherever the election has happened. So, the High Court is convinced that a particular individual has engaged in corrupt practice, then in that particular case also they can be disqualified. But the question is, who is the disqualifying authority in this case? Who is the disqualifying authority? President, or is it the High Court? It is a. So, who is the disqualifying authority in this case? The court cannot disqualify. The authority of the court is to see only whether they have engaged in what is called as corrupt practice or not. Once they will give the order, then it is for the president to disqualify them. So, here also then the president will do that on the recommendation of the Election Commission of India. For the members of the parliament, it is the president, and for the members of the state legislature, it is the governor who is the disqualifying authority. In both the cases, it is on the recommendation of the Election Commission of India. And what can be the maximum disqualification? It is not that they only disqualified from being a member of parliament in that particular term, but there can be certain other elements. So, what can be the maximum disqualification? The maximum disqualification may extend up to 6 years, but it is not necessarily always 6 years. The Election Commission of India has a discretion in this regard. It may be maximum up to 6 years. Okay. So, it is based on case to case basis, the Election Commission of India may recommend. Now, the next disqualification is if any member of parliament or a member of state legislature is convicted for any criminal offence, and what is the minimum term for which they are convicted? The minimum term that they are convicted is for 2 years. Say for example, let us assume that there is a case of what is called as defamation, but it is a criminal defamation. I hope you understand what is defamation. Can anyone tell me what is defamation? What is an offence of defamation? Disrespecting. Disrespecting may not amount to defection always. Defection is a far more serious offence, not merely disrespecting. Imposing false allegation. No, I am not asking the similar word in different languages, but what is defection? Violate the fundamental rights.
Violate the party rules.
Violate?
Defection, you are asking.
I am not asking defection, it is defamation. What is defamation? Very good. It is not about disrespecting, it is not about violating the fundamental rights. It is what? It is maligning the reputation of some individual in the society. Therefore, we cannot claim that somebody has maligned our reputation unless until we have a reputation in the first place. That is also very important. So, if somebody has a reputation and by some wrong statement or by some wrong communication, a particular individual is trying to malign the reputation of others in the society, then that particular individual has defamed the other individual. And defamation in our country can be both a civil offence as well as a criminal offence. Suppose if you file a civil suit, the remedy for that is maximum fine, imposition of fine. But if it is a criminal suit, then what can be the maximum punishment for the offence of defamation? The maximum punishment for the offence of defamation is jail, but what is the term of the jail sentence? Maximum 20 years for defamation. 20 years is not even given for most severe criminal offences. It is not a very big criminal offence. The maximum punishment for defamation is 2 years. 2 years is the maximum punishment for criminal defamation. Alright. So, the point that I wanted to ask is, if somebody is convicted of criminal defamation, I said that the maximum punishment is 2 years, but not necessarily always the 2 years punishment may be given. It depends upon the severity of the offence in that case. Suppose if an individual is given 6 months of imprisonment for the offence of what is called as criminal defamation, is he likely to be disqualified? Will he be disqualified? Yes.
Yes.
No, not 2 years, not 2 years, I say 6 months. I am giving an example of 6 months. I am not giving the example of Mr. Rahul Gandhi, I am giving the example of 2 months. Let us take some hypothetical example. X is an individual convicted of criminal defamation and the punishment that is given for him is 6 months of imprisonment. Though he is convicted for the criminal defamation, because here the provision says convicted of any offence for 2 or more years. It is not specifying what offence, any offence. For how many years they have to be convicted minimum? 2 years. So, now the question is, if he is convicted of criminal defamation, that is the offence, but he is convicted for 6 months. Is he likely to be disqualified just because he is convicted in this case? He cannot be disqualified, because for disqualification for conviction in a court of law, what is the minimum punishment that is required? Minimum 2 years, or it should be more. So, if it is 2 years or more, then there is an automatic disqualification. Nobody have to disqualify them. They automatically stand disqualified the moment they are convicted in a court of law. And how long this disqualification may happen? This disqualification is the quantum of imprisonment plus another 6 years. And the disqualification itself will come when the minimum conviction is for how many years? 2 years. Suppose let us assume an individual is convicted for 2 years, then the disqualification would be for how much time? 2 years plus another 6 years. That means they would be disqualified for 8 years. Is that clear? But for that to happen, what shall be the minimum conviction? Minimum conviction shall be 2 years. But the case that I have given you, the example that I have given you is 6 months. Now tell me what will happen if somebody is convicted for 6 months? Nothing will happen. He may still have to go to jail, let us assume, if he is not stayed by a higher court. Of course, he has an option of going and appealing in the higher court. And if the conviction is not stayed by the higher court, if the conviction is stayed by the higher court, then anyways he will continue to be a member of parliament. But if it is not stayed, probably, then he may have to go to the jail, let us assume. But even in that particular case, he may not be disqualified on the basis of what is called as conviction. Is that clear? He may not be disqualified, because what is the minimum imprisonment required for disqualification under this? Minimum conviction of 2 years. So, he is not, please wait, you want to ask some question? Please wait, let me complete it, then whatever you have a doubt, I am going to entertain that. But in between, do not interrupt me, because most of your doubt may be clarified in the process. Okay. So, anyways, so he is not likely to be disqualified. Now, he is not disqualified just because of the fact what? That he is convicted in a court of law, because for conviction, what is the minimum imprisonment he requires? He requires minimum of 2 years of imprisonment. But he may not be disqualified on this particular ground, but there is also provision in the constitution that a member of parliament can also be disqualified for continuous absence from the house. Suppose let us assume that he is disqualified. So, suppose let us assume that he is convicted, but he is not convicted for how many years? Minimum 2 years, but it is less than that. But if it is less than 2 years, he may not be disqualified on this grounds. But there is a provision in the constitution, that is article 101 of the constitution, that says that there are certain grounds on which a seat can be considered to be vacant. A parliamentary seat can be considered to be vacant if a member of parliament is continuously absent from the house for 60 days without the permission of the presiding officer. Therefore, if a person goes to jail even for 6 months, let us assume, but in the 6 months time he is continuously absent for 60 days, 60 days only the number of sitting days, not the leave, not the adjournment, those things has to be counted. Only the actual sitting days, if it is counted, and if it is 60 days minimum, then still his seat may become vacant. But however, he is not directly disqualified for this particular reason, for convicted in a court of law, because for conviction in a court of law, what is the minimum punishment? That is 2 years. Now, the most important thing that you have to understand is, so here when they are found guilty of an electoral offence or corrupt practice, so here the disqualification done by the president. So here also there is no disqualification in the first place, but the seat may be considered to be vacant. It is not even disqualification, but the seat is considered to be vacant, and this will be done by the presiding officer in this particular case under article 101, not the president, the presiding officer will declare that to be vacant, the seat is declared to be vacant, provided he is not getting the permission, because when the seat may be considered to be vacant only without the permission of the presiding officer, but if the presiding officer gives a permission for this vacancy, then the seat may not be vacant. So here it is not a disqualification, but the seat will become vacant. But the most important thing that you have to understand is, under the Representation of People Act, it is not just that there is disqualification for conviction only when the punishment is more than 2 years or more, but in the Representation of People Act itself, they have specifically given certain offences. There are two types of criminal offences. There are two types of offences that the Representation of People Act considers. Now, one type of offences for those laws which is specifically mentioned in the Representation of People Act itself. Inside the Representation of People Act itself, they are mentioning the name of certain offences. Say for example, they are mentioning what is called as Prevention of Corruption Act. They are mentioning what is called as a Civil Rights Act. They are mentioning what is called as laws related to terrorism in our country. So in this way, a lot of acts are mentioned, which is specifically mentioned where? Inside the Representation of People Act itself. The Representation of People's Act is saying that if anybody is convicted of those offences which is specifically mentioned in the Representation of People Act itself, then in that particular case, that the moment they are convicted, they are disqualified. The moment they are convicted means in those cases, the quantum of punishment is immaterial, and what is the only thing that is to be seen? Whether they are convicted or not. Say for example, somebody is convicted under the Prevention of Corruption Act, but the punishment is merely, let us assume, fine, because under the Prevention of Corruption Act also the punishment can be fine, it can be imprisonment, it can be imprisonment plus fine. But in this case, the court is convinced that he is guilty, but what is the punishment that is given to him? Only the fine, or let us assume the punishment that is given is only 3 months, or let us assume the punishment that is given is only 6 months. In this case also he is disqualified immediately, because these are all considered to be very serious offences, and that is why these offences are specifically mentioned in the Representation of People Act itself. The examples of some of such serious offences include these laws, that is the Prevention of Corruption Act, the laws related to what is called as the terrorism related laws in our country, the Civil Rights Act. What is the Civil Rights Act related to? It is related to the practice of untouchability. So if anybody is convicted of these offences, what is not material? The quantum of punishment is not material. The moment they are convicted in the court of law, irrespective of their punishment, they are disqualified. And how long they will be disqualified? They will be disqualified for 6 more years after completing their imprisonment. Now, whatever is their imprisonment, say for example, if the imprisonment is for 1 year, how long they will be disqualified? 1 year plus another 6 years, that is they will be disqualified for what is called as 7 years. So this is only for the specific laws which is mentioned in the Representation of People Act. Suppose if the laws are not mentioned in the Representation of People Act, for the other set of laws, if they are convicted, because not all the laws are mentioned in the Representation of People Act, if they are convicted of any of the other criminal offences which is not mentioned in the Representation of People Act specifically, in those cases, what is the minimum conviction that is required? Minimum conviction of 2 years, then only they will be disqualified. Is that clear? So, try to understand in certain cases the laws which is mentioned in the Representation of People Act, they will be disqualified automatically immediately, but those laws has to be mentioned in the Representation of People Act. For the other laws, what is the minimum conviction that is required? The minimum conviction that is required is what is called as 2 years. Is that clear to all of you? Then only they can be disqualified. But still the seat may become vacant because of the 60-day provision under Article 101. So, here also the conviction is automatic. The president does not have to disqualify, it is automatic. So, here the disqualification does not happen, but there is a possibility that the seat may become vacant and the order will be passed by the presiding officer. And there is also one more ground as to how the seat may become, they may be disqualified is under the Representation of People's Act. After the election is over, every person who has contested the election has to file their accounts of the election expenditure to the Election Commission of India. Do you know, as per the election laws in our country, that there are certain limits as to how much they can spend for the elections. The limit varies from the Lok Sabha constituency is different, and the limit for the Legislative Assembly constituency is different, depending upon whether it is a big constituency, small constituency, depending upon the area. So, it may vary, but some limit is given under the law. Therefore, it is also mandatory that every person after the election is over, that they have to file the accounts of those election expenses with the Election Commission of India. And how much time within which they have to file these election expenditures? They have to file it within 30 days after the declaration of results. And if they fail to do that, then that is also a ground for their disqualification. But in this case, who is the disqualifying authority? In this case, the disqualification can be done by the Election Commission of India. So, this is the only direct authority which is given to the Election Commission to disqualify them, and in this case the disqualification may extend up to 3 years. So, Election Commission has the power to disqualify them for up to 3 years. Okay. So, these are all the ways that they can get disqualified. So, now try to understand that what are the grounds on which they can be disqualified. Not only the grounds on which they can be disqualified, what are the grounds on which the president can disqualify them, what are the other ways of disqualification, what are the things that is directly in the constitution, not in the constitution. In addition to all these things, there is also one more ground on which they can be disqualified, which is mentioned in the constitution, is also what is called as disqualification on the grounds of defection. So, if you see directly under the constitution, 1, 2, 3, 4 and also defection, all these things are given in the constitution. For whatever given in the constitution, who is the disqualifying authority? It is the president except the anti-defection law, because in case of anti-defection law, who is the disqualifying authority? It is a presiding officer. The presiding officer of the respective house is the disqualifying authority. So, we will try to understand as to how this anti-defection law is carried out. What is defection in the first place? What are the provisions of the anti-defection law related to the prelims examination very quickly? Yes, what is your doubt? You wanted to ask me some doubt? Resolved. So, that is why please wait for some time. When you wait, probably it may get resolved. It is not that I am not going to entertain, but it will disturb the flow. Okay. So, in the end you wait, I will give the time, and whoever has a doubt, you can ask me the question. Alright, any question from this particular area? Shall I move forward? Yes. That is minimum 6 months. That is 6 months only, no minimum maximum. That is a standard rule. Yes, yes, that there can be a range. That is decided at the discretion of the Election Commission of India. Because here it depends upon the kind of electoral offences and all those things. There the maximum time is 6 years, but it can vary depending upon the case to case. But in case of conviction, be it here or in case of conviction, be it here, that is a standard rule. Year of conviction plus another 6 years. But here the point is that the conviction itself will happen only when the minimum imprisonment is 2 years. Then only the disqualification will come. Alright. Where? In which case? In the conviction automatic, there is nobody who has to issue a disqualification order. in any case when there is a conviction, if at all they are disqualified because of the reasons of conviction, the disqualification is automatic. So, automatically they will be disqualified. Is that clear? So, whenever they are convicted, it does not matter what is the reason behind their conviction. If the disqualification is arising out of conviction, then the disqualification is automatic. In all the other cases, it is done by the president, whatever is given in the constitution, except for what is called as the anti-defection law. In the anti-defection law, who is the disqualifying authority? The respective presiding officer will be the disqualifying authority. In case if the conviction is not more than 2 years or less than 2 years, in this particular case, it is less than 2 years, then in that particular case, there is no disqualification. But there is a possibility that still the seat may become vacant because of the provision in Article 101. Because what is Article 101 is saying? If any member of parliament is continuously absent from the sitting in the house for more than 60 days without the permission of the presiding officer, then the seats can be declared to be vacant. Though he is not disqualified, but the seat becomes vacant. So, in that way the seat may become vacant. And then the other disqualification is also fail to lodge the election expenses. And in case if they fail to lodge election expenses, in this case the disqualifying authority is the Election Commission of India as per the Representation of People Act. Is that clear? So, try to be clear about all these things. So, now let us try to understand about the anti-defection law. All right. Any questions? Shall I move forward?
Yes.
Sure. All right. So, please write down, look into the next topic, that is the anti-defection law. Now, this anti-defection law is also very, very important. It is relevant for your mains also, but here I will just see it from the point of view of prelims only. Now, if you see this anti-defection law, there was no such provision as to anti-defection law in the original constitution. When this anti-defection law came into the constitution, it came into the constitution only by the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1985. Okay. So, 1985, by the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the anti-defection law was brought in. Now, before that there was no anti-defection law. So, can anyone tell me what was the reason that there was no anti-defection law? What are the reasons can you think? Although that is not very important for your prelims, but I just wanted to know. What do you think? What could be the possible reason that there was no reason for anti-defection law? In the defection was not happening in the first place. There was only one major party, and there is nobody will gain by defecting from Congress party to any of the other party. Why defection happens? Defection happens majorly for some political gain. So, at that time there was no reason for the defection in the first place. So, nobody took defection very seriously. It might be also the factor that the conscience of the members are also so high, because the quality of the members of parliament is also getting downgraded over a period of time. So, anything could be the factor, but majorly no political gain that they foresee through defection. But things started moving differently after 1960s, especially in the regional parties, especially in the state legislature. People started defecting for multiple reasons, especially for political gains. And because of this defection, what has happened? The stability of the government actually got affected. What is actually getting affected? Stability. In fact, it is used to be said there was an episode in the state of Haryana that within one single day the person has joined 3 parties. From morning one party he went to second party, and by afternoon he moved from that party to another party by evening. But that is not the case actually. But within 15 days a particular legislature has brought 2 governments down by defecting. That is also what is called as Ayaram Gayaram episode. There was a legislator who was called as Gayala, who joined different parties through defection, and different governments were brought down. So, therefore, that is a time when they thought that there has to be some way to prevent this what is called as political defection. And to prevent the political defection, they wanted to bring in a provision to punish the political defectors. And to punish the political defectors, they brought in what is called as the anti-defection law. That is, this is basically the provision against political defection. And what is the punishment for defection as per this anti-defection provision? Is that anybody who engages in political defection, they shall be liable to be disqualified to be a member of parliament or a member of state legislature. So, the punishment is basically disqualification. But remember that defection and subsequently this anti-defection law will apply only to a member of a legislature party, it does not apply to a member of a political party. Are you sure that what is the difference between? You have to be very clear about it. I am repeating it again. The anti-defection law as a provision will apply only to a member of a legislature party and not a member of a political party, not a member of a mere political party, but a member of a legislature party. So, can anyone tell me what is the difference when I use the word member of a legislature party and a member of a political party? Yes.
So, for example, political party, I can be a member of BJP, but if I defect to Congress, it's my personal ideology is changing, so anti-defection law won't apply. But when we consider Mr. Amit Shah, he is a member of legislature party, he is at the center sitting from BJP, holding a post in the party. So that is his.
Alright, so to put it in a very simple way, the idea is who is a member of a legislature party. A member of legislature party is someone who has contested election from that particular party ticket and who represents a party in the legislature. Then he becomes a member of a legislature party. But who would be a member of a political party? Anyone who has got party membership would be a member of that particular political party. So, anti-defection law does not merely apply to a member of a political party. Anyways, someone who is part of the legislature party is covered within the definition of political party also. But not everybody who is part of the political party may be part of the legislature party. So, who is a part of the legislature party? Somebody who has got contested election from that particular party ticket, won the election from that particular party and represents that particular party in the legislature. If they defect from that party to another party, then the anti-defection law will apply. Someone who is a member of a political party but has not contested election from that particular party, he is free to change the political party. That is not an issue, but not from a legislature party. Then the anti-defection law likely to apply. Alright. So, the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1985 was aimed at what is called as political defections, is aimed to prevent political defection, and this will apply to a member of what is called as a legislature party. And when they brought in this anti-defection law as a part of the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, in fact, they amended Article 102 and Article 191 of the Constitution, where they inserted one more ground for their disqualification by amending Article 102, because Article 102 was talking about the disqualification and Article 191 was talking about the disqualification for the members of the state legislature. But though they have amended Article 102 and Article 191 brought this extra condition, they did not elaborately give the details as to what are the grounds on which this defection law may apply, and to provide these details they inserted a new schedule into the Constitution, and that new schedule is what is the 10th schedule in the Constitution. This itself is asked in the examination number of times. It is a 10th schedule which gives details as to what are the grounds on which the defection can apply. So, what are the grounds on which it can be seen as a defection for a person belonging to the legislature party? First ground is someone gives up the party membership voluntarily. So, the first ground is voluntarily giving up the party membership. Voluntarily giving up the party membership. So, what does it mean by voluntarily giving up the party membership for someone who belongs to the legislature party?
Without pressure by renouncing the party membership. I don't want to be a member.
That means anybody who has got elected from one particular party, he himself joining another party. That means it is voluntarily giving up the party membership. So, voluntarily giving up the party membership is a ground for their disqualification under what is called as anti-defection law. Now, try to understand, but the Supreme Court has given a wider interpretation of what is voluntarily giving up the party membership. Voluntarily giving up the party membership not only means that somebody is joining from one party to another party, that is even alright, but there may be few members in the political party who will not join another political party, but within the party they may work for the other party. So, can that be seen as voluntarily giving up the party membership? So, what is happening? So, suppose let us assume an individual X is there. This individual X got elected from one party, but he is joining another party after getting elected. That can be seen as voluntarily giving up the party membership, is liable to be disqualified. But suppose let us assume X individual Y is there. That individual Y has not joined another party, but he continues to remain in the same party, but he does something which is against the party, but in favor of another party. Can that be a ground for the disqualification?
Yes.
under the grounds of voluntarily giving up the party membership. So, the Supreme Court has made it very clear that voluntarily giving up the party membership necessary only not mean that they have given up the party membership. It can also mean that they are engaging in what is called as activities against the interest of the party. Even if they continue to be in the same party, but they do activities which is against the interest of the party, then also the presiding officer can come to a conclusion that he has voluntarily given up the party membership. That is also a ground for their disqualification. Is that clear? So, voluntarily giving a party membership does not necessarily mean that they gave up the party membership, but even if they do activities against the party interest, but still continue to be a party member, then also the anti-defection law may apply. Is that clear? So, for example, there was instances in the state of Uttar Pradesh that some of the members of the Bahujan Samajwadi Party continue to be in the Bahujan Samajwadi Party, but they started attending the meetings of Samajwadi Party and they openly praise the members of Samajwadi Party. Then subsequently they are disqualified under the anti-defection law, but they did not give up the membership of Bahujan Samajwadi Party, but their conduct was such that it shows that they have given up the membership of the party. Okay, so it can be applied. That is what is voluntarily giving up the party membership. 2. They did not voluntarily give up the party membership. So, the second condition is, if they voluntarily give up, yes, they can be disqualified. If they vote contrary to the directions of the party, if they vote contrary to the directions of the party, or they abstain from voting against the interest of the party, that is a ground for their disqualification. What does it mean by vote contrary to the directions of the party? Voting contrary means if the whip direction is given to vote in favor, they vote against. If the whip is saying vote against, they vote in favor, or whatever the direction which is given by the whip, they do not do anything, they do not vote for also, against also, they just abstain from voting. In either ways, they are liable to be disqualified under what is called as anti-defection law. Now, because the whip is giving a direction, the party has an interest and you are not acting as per the party interest, therefore, you are liable to be what is called as disqualified under the anti-defection law. Is that clear? So, this is the second ground for disqualification. This both apply for a member of a political party, not just a member of political party, someone who is part of a legislature party. Now, the most important point that you have to understand here is, if they voluntarily give up the party membership, vote contrary or abstain from voting. Now, earlier we have seen about what is called as election to the Rajya Sabha. In the election to the Rajya Sabha, if they do not vote as per the directions of the party, are they liable to be disqualified? No, they are not liable to be disqualified, because the Supreme Court said that it is not a proceedings in the parliament, or it is not a proceedings which should happen in the state legislature as well. Because who conducts the election to the Rajya Sabha? Whose responsibility is to carry out the election to the Rajya Sabha? It is the Election Commission of India. It is the role of the Election Commission of India in which the MLAs participate as an electors. That election is not the function that is to be done by the legislative assembly or by the parliament. Therefore, it shall not be considered to be what is called as a parliamentary proceeding. Therefore, the anti-defection law is very clear. Where the anti-defection law will apply? The anti-defection law will apply in any parliamentary proceedings if they vote against it, not in a function that is to be carried by the Election Commission of India. Is that clear to all of you? Therefore, there it does not apply. 3. Now, there is also a provision for what is called as independent candidates. Who is an independent candidate? Those who do not contest election from a particular party ticket. They contest election themselves, and because they are quite popular, probably they got elected from a particular constituency. Now, if an independent candidate joins any party post elections, then they are also liable to be disqualified on the grounds of what is called as anti-defection law. Now, why do you think an independent candidate should not join any party? What do you think is the reason or rationality that an independent candidate should not join any party? Yes? Because what is the mandate that is given to an independent party, independent candidate? The people have voted to him just because he does not belong to any party. And suppose after the election, if he joins any party, that means he is subverting the entire faith that has been kept upon him by the people who voted him. Similarly, so with the people belonging to any party. Somebody is elected from a party ticket, he is elected not just because he is great. People voted to him just for the reason he belonged to a particular party, people like that particular party. So, therefore, if he changes, then also he is subverting the democratic process. Therefore, an independent candidate should not join any party. If he is joining any party, then also he is liable to be disqualified. 4. But can an independent party give support to any government? He can give outside support without taking up the membership of that particular party, that is okay. But he should not take up the political membership of any party, alright. And then the last category is for nominated members. Who are nominated members and where the nomination can happen? In the Rajya Sabha. We have learned already that the 12 members can be nominated in the Rajya Sabha from the areas of art, science, literature and social service. For a nominated member, someone who is nominated to the Rajya Sabha, they have got 6 months time to join any party. But after 6 months, they should not join any party. In fact, try to understand, whenever the members are nominated, the very idea of nomination is not to bring in the political party members. The very idea of nomination is to bring in experts from different areas, from the areas of art, science, literature. Therefore, there could be diversity of discussion that may happen in the Rajya Sabha. Now, the reason as to why that 6 months time is given to them is these nominated members may not have any political experience. These nominated members are mostly intellectuals or someone who has done great job in the respective area. Therefore, some time has to be given them to understand the parliamentary system and to take some ideologies. So, within those 6 months, if they feel that they want to take some side, after learning about the parliamentary system, they can join. But after 6 months, they cannot join. So, the time that is given to them is 6 months. So, within 6 months, if they join any party, they are not liable to be disqualified. But after 6 months, if they join, they are also liable to be disqualified on the grounds of what is called as anti-defection law. But now the question is, who is the disqualifying authority in all these cases? Who is the disqualifying authority? Is it presiding officer or is it the speaker? It is a presiding officer, because anti-defection law can apply to the members of both the houses of the parliament, not just only to the Lok Sabha. So, the presiding officer is the disqualifying authority. Now, the most important thing that you have to understand is, though the presiding officer is the disqualifying authority, the presiding officer does not have the power to take up these cases suo motu. That means, under any circumstances, who cannot take up these cases on their own? The presiding officers cannot take up these cases on their own as per the constitution. The presiding officers can take up the cases only when the cases are brought to their notice or when the petitions are filed by other parties. Who will be the parties who may bring it to the notice of the presiding officer? Say for example, the party whips of the respective party who got affected. If X has defected from party A to party B, in this case who is affected party? A is affected party. So, party whip of A may file a petition to the presiding officer. Then the presiding officer will carry out the investigation, inquiry, and then finally, if he is convinced that there is a defection as per these provisions, then what can be the punishment that can be given to the individual? Is that he can be disqualified. Suppose let us assume he is disqualified, and then there will be a vacancy to that particular constituency. When there is a vacancy to a particular constituency, can he again contest in that by-election? Yes or no? Yes or no? Can he again contest in the by-election? Of course, he can contest in the by-election. Nothing prevents him from contesting in the by-election. Sometimes students ask me, can he again contest in the same party from where he is disqualified? That I cannot answer. How do I know that whether he can do that? If the party gives a ticket and he is also okay, he can contest, but that is very unlikely to happen. So, normally defection happens because of what? He has done something disloyal to the party. So, he can again contest election. He can again contest election from the same party also if they agree with that, or from a party which he has joined, normally has defected from one party to another party, or he can contest as an independent candidate also. He can contest election. And if he wins the election, then he will serve in that particular house for the remainder of the term. It is not that he will have a full 5-year term, because it is anyways a by-election. He will serve for the remainder of the term. But the person who is disqualified on the anti-defection law, try to understand, unless and until he get elected to the house, he cannot be appointed as a minister even for a period of 6 months. Although he may have all the qualifications to contest election, but unless and until he contests the election and win the election, he cannot be appointed as a minister. But we have seen that otherwise there is an exception under the constitution, that even if they are a member of a parliament, can they be appointed as a minister for 6 months? Yes, but that benefit cannot be given to someone who is disqualified under what is called as the anti-defection law. This is what I was explaining earlier also. Is it clear to all of you? Any doubt? So, in this case he will not get that particular benefit, but can he contest the election? Yes, and if he wins the election, how long he will serve? For the remainder of the term. But if he wins the election, then he can be appointed as a minister. That is a possibility. Alright, but however, you will have to understand one thing. Under the constitution, there is no time limit for the presiding officer to complete this. Whenever a petition is filed, there is no time limit for the presiding officer to complete these proceedings. It is for the presiding officer to take his own time in completing the proceedings when a petition is filed in front of him. But there are certain cases where the Supreme Court has suggested that this has to be done within a reasonable time frame, which is a period of 3 months. But this time limit is not there in the Constitution of India. Therefore, what is the problem with regard to the anti-defection law? One of the biggest problems with regard to the anti-defection law, can the presiding officer stretch this as they want?
Yes.
Because there is no time limit, and we know that under our constitution, the presiding officer may not be completely a politically neutral person, because we know the presiding officer represents the party. Which party? Usually the speaker is from the ruling party, and the chairman is also elected by mostly the support of the ruling party. So therefore, if they are biased, I am not saying they will always be biased, but if they are biased, now try to understand this. Suppose if the opposition party is filing a petition, the speaker may just sit on that. But if a ruling party is filing a petition, he may immediately dispose, because there is no time limit on which he has to do all those things. Do you think that this can be misused? This is one of the biggest drawback of what is called as anti-defection law. And apart from that, there are also few exceptions under the anti-defection law. Before I proceed further, one of the important exception that was given to the anti-defection law in the original constitution, when the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act was brought in, is that it has provided an exception of what is called as 1/3 split. That where the anti-defection law does not apply is 1/3 split. What do you mean by 1/3 split? That means if suppose there are certain number of members in the legislature party from a particular political party, suppose let us assume there are 90 MLAs. Out of 90 MLAs, what would be 1/3? It would be 30 MLAs. If 30 MLAs split from this particular party and move out as a faction, then the anti-defection law will not apply to these 30 MLAs. This is an exception. But any number of MLAs less than 30 MLAs, in this case, if it is less than 1/3, then all those people who are less than 1/3 are likely to be disqualified on the grounds of what? On the grounds of anti-defection law. Now this turned out to be a very big difficulty, because what happened is, because they understand that if they go out alone, they will be disqualified, but if they take others also with them, then they will not be disqualified. So instead of retail defection, what started happening is wholesale defection. So people who wanted to move away, they started taking others also along with them. So it only resulted in more defection that was happening. So in order to avoid this issue, this 1/3 split was replaced by what is called as 2/3 merger. So today this exception of 1/3 split is not there. So instead of this 1/3 split, the word 1/3 split was replaced with what is called as 2/3 merger. And this word 2/3 merger was brought in by what is called as the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act in 2003. So though the word merger is not defined in the constitution, that is one of the biggest difficulty even today. The word merger is not defined in the constitution. What is generally seen as this 2/3 merger is, one is anyways there is a change in the numerical figure. What is the change in the numerical figure? Instead of 1/3 it is 2/3. That means instead of the 30 members, now how many members have to move out? Minimum 60. It is not that just 60 will split from the original party, that 60 has to go and merge with another party. So only when that happens, then they are not liable to be disqualified under what is called as anti-defection law. Although this explanation is not clearly defined in the constitution, but this is what is considered to be what is called as merger. So today what is exception? It is 2/3 merger. So many times question has been asked that who is the disqualifying authority here? Is there any time limit for the disqualifying authority? What are the exceptions? Does it apply to the political party or to the legislature party? What are the 4 conditions that is given under the Anti-Defection Law? These are all some of the things probably you will have to keep in your mind, alright. So, these are all very important. Therefore, now we have understood the disqualification to the members of the parliament. So, please be very clear, what are the disqualification which is there under the constitution, what are the disqualification which can be under the Representation of People Act. For all the disqualification under the constitution except for the Anti-Defection Law, who is the disqualifying authority? President in case of members of parliament, and for the members of the state legislature it is the governor. But apart from that, we also seen some disqualification under the Representation of People Act. They are little different from what you have learned here, alright. So, with that we are done with the Anti-Defection Law as well. Come to the next topic, that is the sessions in the parliament. Again a very important topic. Now, please go through all the topics. If you have any questions, please ask me, and then I will move forward to the next topic. Any questions? Any questions from the online students? No questions? Clear? Okay, so let us see some questions, then we will come back. Okay, so look into this particular question. Consider the following statements. The duration of both the houses of the parliament is fixed under the Constitution of India. Is the duration of both the houses fixed under the Constitution? Now, which house does not have a duration? The Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. So, therefore, the duration is not fixed. It is only for the members but not for the house. So, therefore, this is wrong. Any person contesting election to the Lok Sabha should be an elector from any constituency in that state from where he or she is contesting the election. Is it true? Not necessarily, not a necessary condition, but rather he has to be an elector from where? He is an elector from any constituency in India. Okay, so this is in case of Lok Sabha, but what about in case of Rajya Sabha? Suppose let us assume a person who wanted to get elected from a Rajya Sabha seat from the state of Assam, let us assume. Can he be an elector from the state of Punjab?
Yes.
Is it possible?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Or he should be an elector from the state of Assam itself? How many of you think? Only question, answer to my question. When I ask the explanation, you can give the explanation. What is the answer to the question? Whether he can be or he cannot? He can? Is it possible?
Yes.
How many of you think it is not possible? That he has to be an elector from the state of Assam itself. So, till 1997, that was a scenario. That means anyone who wanted to contest election from a particular state, that is anyone who wanted to contest and get elected to the Rajya Sabha, he has to be an elector only from that particular state, but that is not the case today. So, he can be an elector in anywhere in India, which is 1997, the Representation of People Act was amended. So, therefore, today they have to be an elector anywhere in India, and that has been upheld by the Supreme Court in the Kuldeep Nair case as well. Therefore, that is not a condition that one has to be an elector in that particular state. In fact, the example that I have given is a classic example of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, though he had his electoral role in the state of Punjab, but he has contested from where? It is state of Assam. So, that is very much possible. That is not an issue. So, what is the answer here? As a person contesting election should be an elector from any constituency in that state from where he or she is contesting election. So, he can be an elector from any constituency in India. So, which of the statement given above are incorrect? That is both 1 and 2. Even the duration of the members is not given in the constitution. The duration of the members is only in the Representation of People's Act. It is only the term of the house for the Lok Sabha is given in the constitution, not about the members. Okay. Okay, come to the next question. Consider the following statements regarding the disqualification of the members of the parliament. Statement 1. The members of parliament are disqualified by the President of India in all cases. Now, what is a word that you will have to take into account very clearly? All cases. So, all cases means it is an extreme statement. Whenever an extreme statement comes, try to be very clear about these things. Okay. So, whenever an extreme statement comes, most likely it may be a wrong thing, not only for the subject polity, be it in any subject, be very cautious about it. So, the advantage of doing the previous year question is that the language itself will help you to get 2 to 3 questions right. If you take a very calculated risk, and this 2 to 3 questions may change your fate also. Okay, so that is very, very important. The members of the parliament are disqualified by the president in all the cases, not by the president in all the cases. Yes, of course, in most of the cases, but not in all the cases. So, this is wrong. In case of anti-defection law, the presiding officer must decide the disqualification petition within a period of 3 months. What about this? There is no such provision. Okay, there is no such provision in the constitution. Even if it is not explicitly asked, what is given in the constitution, if it is explicitly given in the constitution, you will have to see whether there is in the constitution. Even if it is not given, then also you should see whether that is there in the constitution, whether there is in any of the law. Wherever we deal with anti-defection law, it is only the constitution which deals with the anti-defection law. So, therefore, it goes even without saying that it is whether given in the constitution or not, it is not given. Any member of parliament can be disqualified for holding of an office of profit. Is it true? A member of parliament can be disqualified for holding an office of profit. Is it true? Yes. Holding an office of profit is a ground for disqualification. We are not looking for exception, but it is only a general rule. So, suppose if it asks that a member of parliament can be disqualified for holding office of profit without any exception, then that is a wrong statement. But here it is generally what? A member of parliament can be disqualified for holding office of profit. How many of the statements given above are correct? One only. Alright, so now we will move to the sessions in the parliament. Please come to the sessions. Okay. What about the sessions in the parliament? What do you mean by session in the parliament? In fact, the relevant article which talks about the session in the parliament is article 85. Again, very important, try to listen to me here. So, therefore, most of your questions can be solved, and this is also an area where UPSC normally focus. What does it mean by session in the parliament? Can anyone tell me what is a session? What does it mean by a session? Very good. So, a session is something where the parliamentarians are called upon to carry out certain functions in a particular session. So, normally if you see, who is authority under the constitution to summon a particular session? It is a president. It is a president who has authority to summon a particular session, which means without the president summoning a session, the parliamentarians cannot meet in the first place. They cannot come and sit in the parliament and discuss the things and carry out various functions, be it law making, be it budget enacting, be it having some discussions in the house. First of all, for doing all those things, a session has to be summoned, they have to be called upon, they have to be invited to that particular session. And who is authority to summon a particular session? It is a president who is authority to summon the session. But remember, though the president is authority to summon the session, and so is a governor under the state legislature to summon the session, the only difference is whatever I am discussing here, it is article 85, there it is article 174 in case of the states. The governor has a power to summon the sessions. But this is not a discretionary power of the president or the governors. This has to be strictly done on the aid and advice of the respective council of ministers. So, whenever the council of ministers advise them, they will be summoning the session. Now, what does it mean by summoning the session? Summoning means that the president is inviting the members of the parliament, to start a session, that is a starting point of the session, that is basically what is called as summoning. To start a session and to transact whatever legislative business you have got, you can do that. That is basically what is called as summoning of the session. But what you will have to understand and what you will have to remember is, there is nothing that is prescribed in the constitution as to how many sessions has to be there in a given year. There is no prescription as to how many sessions has to be in a given year. There is nothing that is prescribed in the constitution as to how many days the members of the parliament has to sit in a given year. None of these things are given in the constitution. The only information that is given in the constitution with regard to summoning of a session is that the president, or for that matter the governor, they have to make sure that there is no lapse of 6 months between two consecutive sessions. When I say there is no lapse of 6 months between two consecutive sessions, lapse of 6 months between two consecutive sessions, which means that the gap between two consecutive sessions shall not be more than 6 months. Two consecutive sessions. So, what shall be the maximum gap between two sessions? The maximum gap between two sessions can be up to 6 months. It cannot be more than 6 months. This is the only thing that constitutionally the president has to ensure. When I say the president has to ensure, who has to give the advice in such a way? The council of ministers have to give the advice. For example, if you have to understand that further, let me just do this very quickly. Suppose, let us assume the president is summoning a session. This is basically the start of a session. Let us assume this is S1, this is the start of the session, and who will summon the session? The president will summon the session on the aid and advice of the council of ministers. Once summoned, the members of the parliament will come together, they will do whatever they want to do, let them do. But by the time they complete all the agenda that they have, whatever the agenda that they have, it is all completed. The agenda that the government has is also completed, the agenda that the opposition had is also completed. Then whenever they complete the session, then probably then they have to terminate the session, that they have to end the session. So, the starting of the session is basically what is called as summoning of the session, and the end of the session is basically what is called as prorogation. So, who has to summon the session and who has to prorogue the session? Both has to be done by the president in case of the union legislature, and in case of the states, who has to summon the session? Governor. Who has to prorogue the session? Governor. Prorogue is a word that is used in the constitution, but instead of prorogation, the word termination can also be used. So, when I say summoning means starting of the session, prorogation means termination of a session. But however, try to understand how many sessions has to be there in a given year. What shall be the duration of these sessions? That is nothing prescribed in the constitution. The only thing that the president has to ensure is that there shall be not a lapse of more than 6 months between two consecutive sessions. Therefore, whatever we are following today is merely a parliamentary conventional practice. When I say parliamentary conventional practice, there is no names that is given to any of these sessions, or the constitution says how many sessions. But today we have a parliamentary conventional practice of having 3 sessions. What are those 3 sessions? We have what is called as the budget session, and then we have a monsoon session, and then we have a winter session. 3 sessions in a given year. And this practice that we follow is only a conventional practice, and the name is also only a conventional practice. which is overlapping with the season or the names or important function that is to be done in that particular session. So, that is only a conventional practice. Is that clear? And among these sessions, which is usually a largest session,
The monsoon.
which is the largest session, longest session? The longest session is the budget session, not the monsoon session. The longest session is the budget session, then the monsoon session, and then you have what is called as the shortest session is the winter session. Now, normally apart from these three sessions, there can be certain special sessions as well. Whenever there is a need, the president can convene that. So, normally otherwise by conventional practice, we used to have these three sessions. So, the first session is usually the budget session, and what is a major agenda in the budget session? To enact the budget, and in addition to the budget, some bills can also be passed. Then after the budget session is prorogued, then after some time there is a gap. That means you should have an understanding that the parliamentarians, when they get elected, it is not that they will sit in the parliament throughout the year. It is not that as someone goes to the office every day, they will go to the office every day and come. They may go to the parliament when there is a parliament in session, but after that, once the session is prorogued, then there is what is called as this period where there is no session in the parliament is called as recess in the parliament. Now, why do you think that the recess in the parliament is also important? The ministers are not only the members of parliament, ministers are only a subset of the other members of parliament. When you talk of the members of the parliament, mostly I am discussing about the legislative members, the MPs. Of course, the ministers are also MPs, but how many are ministers? Hardly 1/5, hardly 1/4, not even that. We have 70 to 80 ministers, but we have around 800 MPs. Therefore, not everybody is a minister. Now, why do you think that the recess is also very important? Break between the two sessions to plan for the next session, okay. They have to be prepared for the next session also, okay, agreed, that can be one of the reason. The committees will be a continuous thing. See, whether the house is in session or no session, it does not mean that when there is a recess that the committee will not function. The parliamentary committee will function throughout the year, whether the parliament is in session or not. Yes, what is the other, somebody was telling, what is the reason that you are trying to say? Yes, they have to go to the people, they have to go to the constituency, and they have to meet the people also, they have to understand what is the requirement of the people also. So, therefore, it is also important there has to be some recess. Otherwise, how they will be in touch with the people? Because they represent the interest of the people. Therefore, there will be recess, but this recess cannot be beyond a period of what? 6 months. So, between 6 months, any time between 1 day to 6 months, the second session will again be summoned by the President of India. Is that clear? So, this is the starting point of the session. This is, let us assume, starting point of the session 2, and then simultaneously the session 2 will also come to an end. So, this is again summoning, this is prorogation. So, similarly after a gap, then there will be third session. This will be the third session. Now, 3 sessions will be summoned and 3 sessions will be prorogued by the end of the year, and then again the next year, again 3 sessions. But however, try to understand that these 3 sessions that I am talking about is not prescribed in the constitution. As I already said, it is merely what? A conventional practice. The only thing that the president has to ensure is whenever there is a recess, recess technically means the parliament is not in session. It shall not be beyond a period of what? Beyond a period of 6 months, but not necessarily it has to go for 6 months. It can be after 2 months also, 3 months also, but it should not breach that 6 months. That is the only thing that the president has to keep in his mind. Now, in this way, session 1, session 2, session 3 first year, second year session 1, session 2, session 3, third year session 1, session 2, session 3, fourth year session 1, session 2, session 3, fifth year session 1, session 2, session 3, and by the time the Lok Sabha term is coming to an end, then there won't be any more session, then there will be what is called as dissolution of the house. Now, because if you look into article 85, article 85 talks about the power to summon, prorogue and to dissolve the house, and this dissolving of the house only means that it is the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved because Rajya Sabha is what type of house? Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. while the summoning and prorogation of the session may happen in both the houses, not necessarily only in the Lok Sabha. Summoning and prorogation of sessions may happen in both the houses, but the dissolution of the house means it is only which house? Only the Lok Sabha, because the Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. So, have you understood as to what is summoning, what is prorogation and what is dissolution? And there is no fixed number of days which is prescribed in the constitution where they have to meet. There is no fixed number of sessions. The only thing that the president has to ensure is that there should not be a lapse of more than 6 months between two consecutive sessions. Now, in addition to this conventional practice, whenever there is a need for a special session, that can also be convened by the president. The president is free to do that as well. And one more important thing, that the parliamentary proceedings, the parliamentary sessions can also be convened outside the parliament also. It is not necessarily it can be convened only in the parliament. Is it possible for the president to convene a session outside the parliament? Is it? Yes, it is also possible, because the constitution does not say it has to be done only in the parliament. Suppose let us assume there is a war, and for that particular war some decisions to be taken, a special session has to be convened, and by convening a session in the parliament, you are putting all the parliamentarians under risk, because the enemy knows where all the parliamentarians exactly sit. Therefore, it is also possible for the president to convene a secret session which may not happen in the parliament also. Is that okay? In fact, this was once asked in UPSC, so it is very much possible. So, he can convene a session outside that as well. So, summoning a session, proroguing a session, dissolution of the house means only Lok Sabha. It is all power of whom? The president, but on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. The gap between these sessions is basically what is called as recess, and it shall not be more than a period of 6 months. But before I complete, you shall also understand as to what is called as adjournment. You shall also understand as to what is called as adjournment and adjournment sine die. Sine die or sine die, whatever it is, you can call it. Now, what do you mean by adjournment? Now, try to understand this adjournment and adjournment sine die is both the powers of the presiding officers. The president has nothing to do with that. And in fact, these things are not mentioned in the constitution. While Article 85 directly talks about what is called as the power of the president to summon, prorogue and to dissolve the house. The constitution does not directly say that it can be done by the president, that is adjournment and adjournment sine die. Now, what is adjournment? An adjournment is a definite break within a session. That means within a session there can be multiple breaks, and that multiple breaks, but it is a definite break, is what is called as a session. Say for example, if you take that we started at 2 o'clock, probably I will end the class at 7 o'clock. Let us assume this to be a particular session. But did we have a break in between this particular session? And when I gave the break, did I also not say that the break is going to be half an hour? That is a definite break. So, similarly, when the session is happening in the house, and at that point of time, who can give a definite break to the members of the parliament in that house? The presiding officer can give a definite break. That break can be for hours, it can be for days, it can be for weeks, but it is a definite break, which means the members of the parliament knows when they have to meet again within the session, and such a type of break is what is called as adjournment. Adjournment is usually a definite break. Now, tell me, normally for what purpose do you think that the adjournment may happen in the house?
Focus on the important issue that has come up.
To scrutinize the bills, why would they adjourn the house? No, scrutinizing the bills, always they will send it to a parliamentary committee. The committee will function parallelly, not necessarily they will adjourn the house for that. To maintain the, it might be possible some indisciplinary activities happening. Some members are trying to act violently, they are using unparliamentary languages, or some indisciplinary activities is happening. Temporarily, the presiding officer may adjourn the house. He may say that it is adjourned for half a day, it is adjourned for few hours, till the time the situation is normal. Yes, that is one of a correct ground. Is there any other ground for which the parliament can be adjourned, the sessions can be adjourned? It might also be possible constitutionally that there is a lack of quorum in the house. Have you ever heard of this word quorum? So what is quorum in the house? Quorum in the house means that the house can function only when there is a minimum strength in the house, and when there is no quorum, then also it can be adjourned. That is also one of the reason. And what is quorum in the house? That the minimum strength should be not less than 1/10 of the total membership of that house. So if that minimum strength is not there in the house, then the presiding officer has anyways have to adjourn it. He cannot carry out any proceedings constitutionally. But even if they have the strength, let us assume, but some indisciplinary activities is there, then also he may adjourn the house. So for whatever reason he thinks, but it is all the discretion of the presiding officer inside the house. Once it goes to the house, the presiding officer will decide all those things. But whatever you have to understand, adjournment means adjournment is a definite break, and there can be multiple adjournments within a particular session. Alright, so that is basically adjournment. Now what do you mean by adjournment sine die or adjournment sine die? Indefinite break that is given at the end of the session. That is basically what is called as adjournment sine die. Now so let us take the example here. Let us take this session on to be a budget session. Usually what is our first session? Let us consider this to be a budget session. That in this budget session, budget is enacted, 2-3 laws wanted to pass, that is also passed. Now no more agenda is there. When there is no more agenda, there is no need to meet again. Therefore what normally has to happen, that the session has to be terminated, because all the agenda is over. But however, at this point of time, let us assume that all the business is over, but when all the business is over, the presiding officer in the house does not have the power to terminate the session. Who has the power to terminate the session? Only the president has the power to terminate the session. But the presiding officer, what he can do is that he can pass an order of what is called as adjourned sine die. That means he will tell the members that I am giving indefinite break to the house. So first, normally what will happen, whenever all the business in the house is over, the presiding officer will pass what is called as adjourned sine die, and following the adjourned sine die, the president will issue what is called as a prorogation order to that particular house. Is that clear to you? So this is the difference between what is called as adjournment and adjournment sine die. Okay. So now I think you should be clear about all these things as to what is summoning of a session, prorogation of a session, dissolution, what is adjournment, what is adjournment sine die, what is recess, all these things clear. Alright, so come to the next thing, that is the right of the president to address these sessions in the parliament. Is the adjournment sine die and the prorogation are the one and the same? They are not one and the same. How they can be one and the same? Because when the adjournment sine die is over, if the president is not passing the prorogation order and if there is some other business which is still pending suddenly, then immediately the adjournment sine die can be taken away and they can again meet a session. But whereas once the prorogation is done, then they cannot meet again unless and until the president again summons the house. The president has to again summon the house. Is that clear? So technically these two are different things. It is not the one and the same. Although normally after the adjournment sine die, the president is going to issue what is called as a prorogation. But adjournment sine die is not equivalent to the prorogation, because when there is an adjournment sine die, technically the session is still intact. But when the prorogation is passed, the session is terminated. Is that clear? Every time it happens. What is the example that you need? Every time before the session is terminated, the presiding officer will pass an adjournment sine die. You can just find out those examples. What kind of example do you expect from me? Do you want me to tell this date there was an adjournment sine die that was passed by the presiding officer in this particular session? You can find it out if you want. Okay. But adjournment sine die is a very routine process that happens. Okay, so come to the next thing, that is the right of the president. So here we are going to discuss about what is called as Article 86 and Article 87 in the Constitution. Article 86 and Article 87 in the Constitution. Now, what is Article 86 in the Constitution? Article 86 in the Constitution gives the power to the President to address both the houses of the Parliament anytime, or to send messages to both the houses of the Parliament anytime. We know that the President is also an integral part of the Parliament, although he normally does not involve in any of these discussions and other legislative process. But the President is the one who can summon the session, prorogue the session, and also dissolve the House. But sometimes if the President wanted to address the houses of the Parliament separately or jointly also, the President can do that under Article 86 of the Constitution. The President can make an address, or he can even just send a message, whatever he wants to think, or sorry, whatever he wants to convey. He can either directly go and address, or he can send a message in this regard. That is what is his power under Article 86 of the Constitution. But again, this power under Article 86 is not exercised by the President on his own, but it is largely based on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. But please tell me, why would the President wanted to address or send messages to the members of the Parliament? In fact, that is not the interest of the President. The President is advised by the government to do so. Now, why would the government wanted the President to address the House?
So that the House can know about the policies and the objective of the government.
That the ministers themselves can announce. Why they want the President to announce the policies of the government?
If any ruling government bill is pending, the Parliament, the government can ask the President to
Very good. It is not just to announce the policies. Policies anyways the ministers can announce, the Prime Minister can announce, or the concerned minister can announce. That is not an issue. When normally this may be exercised by the President is whenever an important bill from the point of view of the government is pending in the Parliament. And for what reason it is pending in the Parliament? For the reason that it requires the support of the opposition. Normally you can understand that anyways the government will have the majority in the Lok Sabha, but where they may not have the majority. Even the present government does not have majority in the Rajya Sabha, despite the fact that they are the ruling party for the last 10 years. Therefore, suppose let us assume an ordinary bill is there which may require approval of both the houses of the Parliament, but if the opposition is not cooperating with the government in passing that particular bill, if the government asks, then the response from the opposition may not be very good. But rather if the President comes and makes an address, it might be possible that there could be some cooperation, because the President is seen as not a political personality, he is seen as a more neutral authority, and that is an office of what is called as very high dignity. Therefore, if at all a cooperation is sought by the government from the opposition, sometimes they may convey the message through the presidential address. So, they may ask the President to make the address or ask the President to send the message. It is not definite that the opposition may cooperate, but the chances are there that they may cooperate. Under such a situation, they may ask the President to do so. And such an address that is delivered by the President is what is possible under Article 86 of the Constitution. Is that clear? So, Article 86 of the Constitution allows the President to make the address or to send messages to the House anytime. If anytime he wants, he can do that. But here anytime means what? Based on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. But Article 87 of the Constitution is allowing the President to do one specific act, that is that Article 87 allows the President to make what is called as a special address. Special address to both the houses of the Parliament. So, similarly under Article 86 and Article 87, where Article 86 is about what? The address or to send messages, whereas Article 87 is only special address. Similarly, the governor can do so, the same thing in the states under Article what is called as 175 and Article 176 of the Constitution. Under Article 175, the governor can make the address or send messages, and Article 176, he can make what is called as a special address. But this special address can be made only on two occasions. What are the occasions they can make the special address? First session after the general election and also first session every year. What do you mean by first session after the general election? After the general election is over, whenever the party comes to power. Now tell me what will happen first after the election is over. After the election is over, that is the general election is over, the first thing that is likely to happen is the formation of the government or it is the summoning of the session? Just think about it and let me know. After the election is over, the first thing that is likely to happen is the formation of the government or the summoning of the session.
Formation of government.
How many of you think it is formation of the government? How many of you think it is summoning of the session? Please be, whatever you think, it is okay, you are making a mistake here rather than making a mistake in the interview or in the examination hall or when you become an officer. There you should not make this mistake in front of your subordinate. Now it is always okay, you are free to do that. That is how you learn. So how many of you think that summoning of the session is the first thing? Okay, summoning of the session. Now let us try to understand this. We already learned that who is authority to summon the session?
President.
President. But the president can summon the session on the advice of whom?
Council of Ministers.
Council of Ministers. So unless until there is a council of ministers in the first place, how do you think that the session can be summoned by the president? Therefore, what is the first thing that is likely to happen?
Formation
First,
of
the government will be formed. So this is a very basic thing, that once the election is over, first of all the leader of the largest party will go to the president and stake claim to form the government. So first the prime minister will be appointed, and once the prime minister is appointed, then on the advice of the prime minister, the other ministers will be appointed. So the first thing that will happen is the swearing ceremony of the prime minister and the council of ministers. Now once a government formed, this government will advise the president to summon what is called as a session. Is that clear? So first whatever will be formed is only the government, and then the sessions will be summoned. Now once a session is summoned, in the first session the president is going to make what is called as a special address, and that address is also what is called as a presidential address. Have you ever heard of this word, presidential address?
Yes.
That is a presidential address. So what will happen in this special address or the presidential address that happens in the first session after the general election is normally, this address is not the address of the president himself or herself. This address is an address which is prepared by the government. The president just merely delivers it. In fact, the president cannot add anything to it, subtract anything to it. He has to just go and read out whatever is prepared by the government. So what is this address? This address is basically the agenda of the government for the next coming years or the next 5 years, as to what they wanted to achieve, what they plan to achieve and how they plan to achieve, and to what extent they require the cooperation from the opposition in achieving all those things. So this kind of speech will be prepared by the government, and which will be delivered by whom? Delivered by the President of India, and this address is basically what is called as the presidential address. So this address is also called as the special address. So this he does after the first session, after the general election in the first session, and not only he delivers a special address in the first session after the general election, but he also makes a special address every first session in every year. So first session in every year. What is the first session in every year? The budget session. So what is a first session every year? The budget session. So basically budget session, what kind of speech is delivered by the president? In the budget session, the president, again which is prepared by the government only, it is not an agenda for the 5 years as in the first session after the general election. In the budget session, he delivers what is called as basically the report card of what the government has achieved in the previous year, because anyways they have achieved something in the previous year, now they are going to present it in the first session every year, which is basically the budget session, and that is also what is called as a presidential address. This will also be prepared by the government. It is a self report card which is prepared by the government itself. Therefore, because it is a self report card which is prepared by the government, it is not necessary for the opposition to accept that. Therefore, after the presidential address is delivered, anyways there will be a discussion on the presidential address. And how this discussion will happen? For this discussion to happen, that once a president delivers a presidential address, be it after the first session, after the general election, or first session every year, after the president delivers the address, any important minister in the Lok Sabha will introduce a motion to thank the president. Normally it may be introduced by the prime minister himself. Introduce a motion to thank the president. Similarly, a motion will be introduced in the Rajya Sabha also to thank the president, because the president may make the address in both the houses jointly or separately. So, this motion may be introduced, and this motion will be debated between the ruling and the opposition party, and finally this motion will be put to vote. And when this motion is put to vote, if this motion is not passed with a simple majority, then this motion itself would be automatically deemed to be what is called as a no confidence motion. If it is not passed in what is called as the Lok Sabha, and therefore what will happen to the government? The government has to resign, because it is automatically deemed to be a no confidence motion. If it is not passed in the Lok Sabha, what if it is not passed in the Rajya Sabha? If it is not passed in the Rajya Sabha, it is not a big deal. It may be a mere embarrassment to the government, if the government takes it as an embarrassment. If they do not take it as an embarrassment, it is not even an embarrassment to them, because we know that anyways that there is a collective responsibility only to the Lok Sabha and not to the Rajya Sabha. But anyways, this motion of thanks will be introduced in both the houses, and it has to be passed in both the houses, but the consequences there to the government only if it is not passed in the Rajya Sabha, sorry, in the Lok Sabha. If it is not passed in the Rajya Sabha, there is no much consequence to the government. So, this is what you will have to understand with regard to what is called as the special address under Article 87. A similar special address will also be done by the governor. Under which article it is done? It is done under Article 176. Special address is only under Article 176. Now, this may also be very important for the reason that in one particular state, the governor has modified the speech which is prepared by the government. Can you just guess me in which state that has happened? And it has become a controversy in the recent past. In the governor of Tamil Nadu. So, he has missed out on the certain speech which was prepared by the government of Tamil Nadu, and then he said that it would be morally wrong for him to read out that particular speech. So, then it becomes a controversy, but anyways that is a political issue, but however you should understand the provisions in the constitution, alright. So, this is what you should know about it. Is that clear to all of you? Is that clear to all of you? Okay. Now, please come to the questions. Okay, have a look into this particular question. Which of the following statement is true? These things has been done. Okay. So, which of the following statement is true regarding the sessions in the parliament? So, look into this particular question. Which of the following statement is true regarding the sessions in the parliaments? The presiding officer has a power to prorogue the sessions of the parliament. Does the presiding officer has a power to prorogue? It is only the president who has the power to prorogue the session. Wrong. The constitution prescribes certain minimum number of sessions in a year. Does the constitution prescribe a minimum number of session? Does the constitution prescribe the minimum number of days they have to sit? Does the constitution gives the power to the president to adjourn and adjourn sine die? Does the constitution give the power to the president to dissolve both the houses? No, it is only the dissolution of Lok Sabha, not both houses. So, be clear about all these things. The constitution prescribes certain number of sessions? No, that is not the case. So, what the constitution prescribes exactly? That there shall not be a lapse of more than 6 months between two consecutive sessions. And then the adjournment of the session can only done by the President of India. Who is authority to adjourn the house? It is the presiding officer of the respective house who has got the power to adjourn it. So, this is also wrong. Which of the statements given above are correct? None of them is correct. Okay, we have not discussed it, but let me see who can give me the answer for this question. Can anyone give me the answer for this question? Anyways, we will discuss the next topic. We will go into the presiding officer, but of course not today, but just go through this particular question. Which of the following majority is required for the election and removal of the speaker and the deputy speaker in the Lok Sabha respectively? What is the majority? For the election and the removal. For election, which majority is required? Sure. For election, it is absolute or simple? And for removal? So, the answer is simple and effective. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between simple and effective majority? So, answer, that is effective membership. What is effective majority? Not 50%, more than 50%. Majority is always more than 50%. Okay, so effective majority is the majority of the effective membership of the house. What is simple majority? More than 50% of members present and voting. No? More than 50% of members present and voting. Okay, I will just give an example. Just tell me what is a simple majority here. Suppose let us assume Lok Sabha is there. On a given day 500 members are present. Can you tell me what is simple majority? 251. How many of you think it is 251? Why so confused? Confident, huh? 251. How many of you think 251 is a simple majority? How many of you think it is not the case? That also nobody is saying. At least she is confident of the 251. How many of you think 251 confidently? Simple majority. Okay, very good. That means you have not understood what is simple majority. In fact, the information that I given is insufficient to calculate the simple majority.
So, but if you are saying that 500 members are present, then it is
The information that I given is insufficient. What did the information that I say? 500 members are present. But you have made an assumption that all are voting. That is your assumption. I did not give that information. There can be few members who may abstain also. So, therefore, always to calculate the simple majority, what information you should have? The number of members present as well as voting in that. Without you actually know how many members are voting, you cannot calculate the simple majority. So, you should know how many members are present and as well as voting in that. Suppose if I give out of this 500 members present, though 400 members are voting, then therefore what is the present and voting? Present and voting is 400. Now calculate the simple majority. 201 is a simple majority. Therefore, it might actually be possible that though 500 members are present, if only less number of members participate in the voting process, then the simple majority can actually go down. That is why it is called a simple majority, which is very easy to achieve, because it depends upon actually the present and voting. This is what is a simple majority. But if you talk the effective majority here, because of the question is asking about the effective majority also, so here you are not concerned about the present and voting. The only information that we need is what is the effective strength of the house. And how do you calculate the effective strength of the house? We know what is the total membership. What is the total membership? 543, that anyways we know. And we should have one more detail as to how many vacancies are there out of this. Suppose let us assume 13 vacancies, then the effective strength would be how much? 530. So here it does not matter how many are present, how many are voting, it does not matter. All that we need is a majority of this. What would be a majority of this? It would be, a majority of this is 265 is 50%. We need to have minimum 266. Therefore, here we are not concerned about the present and voting, but for simple majority we are always concerned about what is called as present and voting. So, try to understand, to calculate the simple majority, you always need to have how many members are present as well as voting. But that is not required for what is called as effective majority. That is also not required for what is called as absolute majority. That is not required. Alright. Anyways, I will discuss about these majorities as I proceed with the class. So, with that we will wind up the class here for today. So, please revise it and come. Without revision, you will not be able to sustain this particular class. It is very difficult to take this much amount of information and it will not be of much use If you don't revise and just sit, come mechanically here and then go back, it may have some effect, but not the maximum benefit. So try to revise it, okay? All right, thank you very much. We'll continue tomorrow.
Question